Hello there, and welcome to Life Beyond Seen, where curiosity drifts slow and steady, and science takes the scenic route to slumber. Tonight, we'll sink together into a world most will never see, a realm beneath sunlight and storm, beneath even the memories of waves. It's a place where beauty and fear blur into one long, quiet breath. A place so alien that the creatures who call it home seem stitched from dreams and nightmares both. This evening, we're going to explore why deep-sea life grows stranger, darker and eerier the deeper you go. Not to scare, but to understand. Because sometimes the most unsettling things are simply the most perfectly adapted. Before we descend, I wonder, where are you listening from tonight? Somewhere near the coast, maybe, where the air smells faintly of salt, or miles inland, where oceans are only ideas on maps and echoes in the shell of your ear. Wherever you are, the same moonlight that brushes your window touches the sea above those creatures we're about to meet. And if you find this journey soothing, or curious, or just the right sound to drift away with, I'd be grateful if you liked the video and subscribed. It helps this quiet little corner of calm find others who might need a soft escape too. Now, if you're ready, take a slow breath and imagine the surface above you fading, sunlight scattering, colours dimming one by one. We begin where blue turns to midnight. At first, it feels gentle. The ocean's surface ripples like silk and the light dances, teasing your eyes with glints of silver and turquoise. Fish flash and disappear, plankton shimmer, and the world feels alive with motion. But as you drift lower, that brightness begins to dissolve. The waves above grow faint and the colours bleed into a dim blue haze. Down here, the rules begin to change. Pressure mounts, temperature falls, and sound carries in strange ways, bending around you like liquid glass. Every metre downward adds another layer of silence. Your body, if it were really there, would start to feel the squeeze. Every 10 metres, the weight of another atmosphere presses in. The air in your lungs would shrink, your heart beats slow, and your mind begin to understand why this place belongs to others. Scientists call this upper zone the epipelagic, but to the senses, it's simply daylight's last stand. It stretches to about 200 metres, a mere fingertip compared to the miles that follow. Most sea life we know, the dolphins, turtles, coral reefs, exist in this thin, glowing veil. But just beneath it lies a dimmer world, the twilight zone, where light fades into something ghostly. Here, creatures start to take on shapes that seem touched by imagination. Long trailing fins like ribbons of smoke, eyes that shine like lanterns, jaws lined with translucent teeth. Some glow softly in blue-green hues, flickering like underwater fireflies. This is the first hint of the deep's peculiar logic. Down here, light isn't something you see by, it's something you make. It becomes currency, defense, seduction, disguise. Every flicker tells a story of survival, and as you sink farther, that light becomes rarer still, until only the faintest glimmer remains from above. The sun is a memory now, and the water feels endless. Pressure grows beyond comprehension. For every 100 metres you descend, another 10 tons press against each square metre of your body. The human form isn't built for this, but the beings of the deep are. Their bones soften into cartilage, their flesh becomes gelatinous, their organs shift and compress with no complaint. To us it looks monstrous. To them it's comfort. A body that cannot collapse in the weight of eternity. Most of the ocean's volume lies here in darkness. The abyss makes up over 60% of Earth's surface. Imagine that. Most of the planet wrapped in night, and yet we know less about it than we do about Mars. Submarines and remotely operated vehicles have glimpsed only fragments. What they find often feels like something out of myth. An anglerfish dangling its glowing lure. A gulper eel unhinging its jaw wider than its body. A jellyfish pulsing like a slow heartbeat in the black. These are not the products of fantasy, but of physics and need. Every grotesque twist, every gaping mouth or vacant stare exists because of the environment that made it. The deeper we go, the fewer resources there are. Food becomes scarce, light nearly absent, and the cold constant. Evolution answers not with beauty as we define it, but with function sculpted by pressure and starvation. In the deep sea, survival means taking whatever form will let you endure. It means growing teeth like needles for the rare meal that wanders by. It means glowing to lure prey in a place where you cannot chase it. It means stretching your stomach so a single catch can feed you for weeks. From above, these adaptations seem grotesque. But down here, grotesque simply means alive. The eeriness we feel when we look at these creatures isn't really about them, it's about us. The human brain evolved to read faces, shapes, symmetry, to sense what's normal and what's not. When we see a creature with too many teeth, no visible eyes, or skin that seems almost see-through, it unsettles us because it doesn't fit any of our familiar patterns. We interpret that difference as wrongness, when in truth it's simply another kind of perfection. Take for instance the hatchet fish. Barely the length of your finger, it lives hundreds of meters deep. Its sides are mirrored, reflecting the dim light from above so predators below can't see its outline. When danger approaches, it can even adjust the brightness of its own bioluminescent underside to match the faint shimmer of the water above. It's a living stealth craft, invisible in its own world, and yet, if you were to see it in a photo with its bulging silver eyes and knife-thin body, it might look alien, maybe even frightening. But to the sea, it's elegance itself. Or consider the anglerfish, one of the deep's most famous inhabitants. Its lure, a glowing filament tipped with bacteria that emit light, is a trap perfected by darkness. Prey see the glow, mistake it for something edible, and drift closer until jaws like a bear trap close around them. The female carries the light. The male, much smaller, fuses to her body in a strange marriage of necessity. His organs dissolve until he's little more than a set of gonads, feeding off her bloodstream, always near, forever a part of her. It sounds macabre, but in a realm where finding another of your kind might take years, it's a strategy that works, and working is what nature rewards. The deeper we sink, the slower everything becomes. Movement costs energy, and energy is precious. Many creatures drift rather than swim, waiting for luck to bring sustenance. Others hang motionless, suspended in near-freezing water, conserving every flicker of life. The darkness plays tricks on perception. If light appears, it's often blue, because blue wavelengths travel farthest through water. Red vanishes first, which is why many deep-sea animals are tinted red themselves, an invisible colour in the dark. They appear black, unseen, safe, and still. Deeper. Past 1,000 meters, we enter the midnight zone. No sunlight reaches here. The world becomes a domain of cold and pressure. Even sound travels differently, stretched and softened until it seems to come from nowhere. The animals here glow, because that's the only light left. Some use flashes to communicate, others to startle predators. Some flicker in complex rhythms we still don't understand. There are fish whose bodies are nearly transparent, revealing their inner organs like ghost lanterns. There are worms that shoot glowing sparks, jellyfish that explode into rings of blue fire, and shrimp that vomit light to distract attackers. Every gleam is both danger and defense. The deeper the darkness, the more extravagant the light. This paradox defines the abyss. It's as if, deprived of the sun, life decided to make its own stars. Each flicker, each pulse, is a small defiance of extinction. It's no wonder we find these creatures unsettling. They remind us that life persists even when it should not. They thrive where we would be crushed, burn bright where no light belongs. Human eyes were never meant for this realm. In the shallows, light guides us, reveals texture, colour, distance. Down here, light deceives. A faint glow could be safety or death. A glimmer might be a mate, a meal, or a lure attached to something waiting to consume you whole. There's no horizon, no up or down, only gradients of dark. Orientation becomes meaningless. You could spin in circles and never know it. That disorientation, that sense of floating in infinity, touches something primal in the mind. It's awe tangled with fear, fascination with unease. When scientists send submersibles into these depths, the cameras capture scenes that feel dreamlike. A cloud of transparent jelly drifting past. The sudden gleam of an eye in the dark. A slow-moving creature that looks like a cross between a ribbon and a shadow. The instruments hum. The lights cut small tunnels through the void, and for brief moments the deep sea reveals its faces before closing them again. Each dive reminds us that the ocean isn't a uniform blue sheet. It's a layered world stacked by light and pressure, where every level births a new kind of being. The deeper we go, the stranger the shapes become, not because life is losing sense, but because it's adapting to an environment more alien than outer space. If you took a fish from the deep and brought it to the surface too quickly, it would burst from the pressure change. Its body is tuned precisely to the weight of miles of water pressing down. Remove that weight, and the balance collapses. They're built for darkness and crush, and in that contradiction lies their eerie grace. Sometimes researchers describe these creatures with words like monstrous or grotesque, but those words say more about our expectations than about the animals themselves. We equate beauty with what we understand. The deep sea reminds us that nature's creativity doesn't owe us comfort. It builds what works, not what pleases the eye, and in doing so, it crafts forms that defy our imagination. If you think about it, the sea's descent mirrors our own relationship with the unknown. At first, curiosity feels bright and easy. We wade into it, let it lap at our ankles. But as we go deeper, into questions that don't have simple answers, things grow darker, heavier, stranger. The unknown presses in. Our minds adapt, or they retreat. The creatures of the deep never had the choice. They stayed, endured, evolved. And in their strange faces we see what survival really looks like when stripped of comfort or symmetry. You can almost imagine floating there now, suspended in the black, your body weightless. The light from your submersible a fragile halo in the vast dark. Around you drift beings whose names you don't know, whose eyes reflect your own in miniature points of blue fire. You hear the slow creak of pressure against metal, the faint hum of machinery, the occasional crackle of distant shrimp. It's quiet but not empty. The water is alive, vibrating with signals, pulses and faint bioluminescent conversations. This is the realm we rarely see, yet it makes up most of our planet. And still, we descend. Each meter brings colder water, stranger shapes, slower motion. The sunlight is long gone, replaced by a dim internal glow from living things. Down here, beauty isn't found in colour but in resilience. Every life form you pass carries a secret written in its flesh, a solution to an impossible problem. How to see without light, how to breathe with no air, how to feed where food never comes. The answers are unsettling, yes, but also profound. Because the deeper we look into the sea, the more we glimpse of ourselves, the same will to endure, to adapt, to exist against all odds. The descent never really ends. Even the ocean floor, when we finally reach it, is only another beginning. Strange forests of tube worms cluster around vents that spew boiling chemicals into the cold. Crabs scuttle through clouds of minerals, blind yet purposeful. Ghostly fish hover near plumes of heat like moths around invisible flames. Down here, life has rewritten every rule of biology. It feeds not on sunlight, but on the chemistry of the earth itself. And as we hover there, somewhere between curiosity and reverence, the question starts to form. Why do these creatures become more alien, more unnerving the deeper we go? what changes in them, and what changes in us as we look. The answer lies not just in pressure or darkness, but in perception. The sea grows strange because it strips away the familiar. It leaves only function, raw and unadorned, and the truth of that simplicity can look frightening to eyes that crave symmetry and warmth. But down here, there is only what works, what lasts, what endures. And as we drift onward, deeper still, we begin to see how even the dimmest light can define a world, how in this endless dark glow is life itself. And that brings us softly into the next part of our journey, the realm where twilight fades entirely and light becomes not a gift, but a tool. Hello there, and welcome to Life Beyond Seen, where curiosity drifts slowly and science takes the long way home. Tonight, we begin a quiet journey downward, through the layers of blue and into the dark where the strange becomes familiar and the familiar begins to fade. It's not a plunge, but a slow surrender, a gentle drift from the world of light into the endless folds of the ocean's shadow. This isn't a story about monsters or fear, though there will be both in small ways. It's a story about transformation, about why the creatures of the deep grow stranger, softer, and more haunting the farther we follow them down. You might be listening in your room, the air still, maybe a little cool, the hum of the world fading around you. The deep sea has that same hush. It asks for your attention quietly, no sudden movements, no rush. Imagine that you're standing at the edge of an open sea at night. The surface reflects faint light from the moon, silver threads curling over gentle waves. Beneath that thin skin lies a world so vast it defies imagination. Most of our planet's life, and most of its mysteries, exist in that unseen space. Tonight, we'll drift into it, inch by inch, letting the weight of water build above us until the world of sunlight becomes only a memory. The first few meters below the surface feel almost familiar. Light scatters in all directions, creating a restless dance of blue and white that plays across your vision. Tiny plankton flicker, fish dart, and the water feels alive in every direction. Sound travels quickly, clear and sharp, and the pressure is little more than a whisper on your skin. But the ocean is a patient sculptor. With every meter, it changes you. Your ears fill, your breath slows, and the sunlight, once infinite, begins to soften. At 10 meters, you notice colour beginning to fade. Reds vanish first, swallowed by the water's appetite for longer wavelengths. Yellows follow soon after. The world around you turns cooler, bluer, and quieter. Your body begins to sense the depth before your eyes do. Pressure doubles with every 10 meters, not enough yet to crush, but enough to remind you that this is a place of rules you can't negotiate. Here, even air behaves differently. A diver can feel the weight of the sea settling on their chest, the water reminding them that this realm belongs to others. By 20 meters, the first signs of strangeness appear. Fish that live here have eyes larger than yours, designed to catch the thinning light. Their scales shimmer like polished glass, a camouflage in motion. Some are nearly transparent, their bodies reduced to ghostly outlines to vanish against the dimming background. Others flash sudden streaks of colour, a warning, a lure, a signal. For every species you recognise, there are 10 that your brain will try and fail to categorise. Evolution down here isn't interested in your sense of order. At 50 meters, sound grows hollow. The hum of the world above fades until it becomes a dull throb in the distance. Down here, even silence has texture. You can hear your own pulse through the suit, the mechanical breath from your regulator, the quiet crackle of distant shrimp. The water is cooler now, thick like glass, and your movements feel deliberate, almost slow motion. It's here that most human divers stop. Beyond this, the light dims too far for comfort. But our story continues. At 100 meters, the sea takes its first true step toward darkness. The blue deepens into indigo. The temperature drops, and the water presses with a persistence that feels alive. The surface above becomes a silver shimmer, then a memory. The creatures that live here no longer rely on sunlight. Their world is the twilight zone, the mesopelagic, where light fades and pressure builds. This is the realm of transformation, the point where beauty starts to shift into something otherworldly. Small fish with lantern-like bodies drift in schools, their bellies pulsing with faint light. Some release tiny flashes to confuse predators, while others glow steadily, using bioluminescence to find one another in the gloom. Jellyfish pulse in slow rhythm, their gelatinous bells moving with the grace of falling veils. The light they emit isn't random, it's communication. Down here, where vision fails, light becomes language. As you drift deeper, you realize that the ocean doesn't end in layers. It changes in states. It thickens, cools, and quiets until it becomes less a place and more a condition. Each creature you pass is a small miracle of adaptation. Long, slender bodies to slip easily through dense water. Soft, compressible tissue instead of hard bone. Enormous eyes for the briefest glimmers of light. And teeth, so many teeth, translucent and sharp, shaped not for beauty but for efficiency. To live here means to be ready. Meals are rare, encounters unpredictable. Many of these creatures are ambush hunters, patient beyond comprehension, drifting motionless until a shadow passes too close. And yet, there's no violence in it, only necessity. The deep sea doesn't waste motion or energy. Everything here has been refined by time into exact purpose. The eerie faces we see in photographs, the endless teeth and hollow eyes, aren't the marks of horror but of success. Each jaw, each glow, each delicate tendril is a story of survival written in flesh. By 200 meters, sunlight has thinned to almost nothing. It filters down in pale columns, faint as a memory. Here, your eyes begin to lose their bearings. Shadows stretch endlessly. Above and below become illusions. Even the colour blue begins to surrender to grey. This is where true strangeness begins to take hold, not because of what you see, but because of what you can't. Your brain craves edges, reference, boundaries, but the sea gives you none. It is infinite in every direction, and within that infinity, life adapts in ways that unsettle precisely because they work. A creature called the barrelly floats nearby. Its body is small, silver, ordinary, but above its head rises a clear dome, like a helmet of glass, through which you can see its green eyes rotating inside. They look upward through the transparent shield to spot prey silhouetted against the faint light above. To us, it's bizarre, a head that's part skull, part window, but in this twilight realm, it's the perfect design. In a world with almost no light, seeing even a little better means the difference between feeding and fading. At this depth, you also start to feel the cold settle into everything. The water hovers just above freezing, yet it never freezes. The salt keeps it liquid, dense and heavy. Every organism here carries antifreeze proteins in its blood, keeping it alive in temperatures that would end most life instantly. The ocean, at this point, feels eternal. It doesn't rush or roar, it waits. Everything moves slowly as if time itself thickens with the water, and deeper still. 300 meters, 400. The world grows stranger with every passing minute. Creatures you've never imagined glide past. Long ribbons with glowing edges, eels with faces that seem sculpted from nightmares, jellyfish whose bodies pulse with rings of living light. There are fish with mouths so large they seem to unhinge from their bodies, designed to swallow prey half their size. Others have no pigment at all, their skin translucent, their organs visible. If you could look into the darkness with perfect eyes, you'd see that every spark of light here has meaning. A lure, a threat, a signal, or a disguise. Why do they seem creepy to us? It isn't only their appearance, it's that they live without us. They exist in a reality that doesn't acknowledge ours. Their shapes answer to forces we cannot feel. When we see their glowing eyes or endless teeth, our brains read them through the lens of land and air, through a life lived under sunlight. But the deep doesn't follow those rules. What feels wrong to us is simply correct down here. The pressure we call crushing is, to them, the gentle hand that holds the world together. The cold we fear is the perfect temperature for their hearts to beat. At 500 meters, the last traces of sunlight are gone. The sea has swallowed day completely. Now, only the light created by living things remains. Some glow steadily, like lanterns hanging in the dark. Others pulse rhythmically, patterns repeating across their bodies in slow waves. Some flash suddenly, a burst to startle predators or attract mates. Bioluminescence is the heartbeat of this realm. Without it, the deep would be nothing but endless shadow. With it, it becomes a silent carnival of glows and flickers. This is where scientists first began to realize how alive the dark really is. For years, they thought the deep sea was barren, lifeless beyond a few scattered fish. It wasn't until the invention of deep-sea submersibles that we saw the truth. Oceans of living light, billions of creatures communicating through sparks and shimmers. The deep doesn't lack life. It's filled with it. It only hides it beneath the slow breathing of the dark. And the deeper we go, the more the body itself begins to bend to new laws. Down here, creatures have evolved not only new shapes, but new ways of being. Some no longer have eyes at all, having given up on a world without light. Others have turned vision into light itself, carrying chemical factories within their skin that produce glow at will. Some species can sense vibrations through lateral lines, mapping the world through touch and sound rather than sight. The deep teaches that there is always another way to live. At 800 meters, even the sound of your heartbeat would fade into the immense quiet. The weight above you is crushing, yet it's this very pressure that gives the deep its order. Nothing collapses because everything here belongs to the crush. The creatures that survive do so by yielding to it completely. Their bodies are soft, boneless, flexible. Resistance is not strength here. Adaptation is. To fight the ocean would be to shatter. To become part of it is to survive. Every movement in this world carries patience. A fish might wait hours before twitching its fin, conserving every molecule of energy. A predator might spend days floating motionless, waiting for a single meal. Down here, survival isn't about speed, but about endurance. The strange shapes, the stretched jaws, the glowing organs, all of it tells the same story. Make the most of what little the world gives you. And as we hover here, the thought grows clearer. The deep sea feels creepy to us not because it's wrong, but because it's honest. It shows us what life looks like when stripped of comfort, light and ease. It shows us the truth of adaptation, unsoftened by sunlight or beauty. It's a mirror held up to our own survival instincts, magnified and made alien by darkness. As we descend past 1,000 meters, the twilight ends entirely. Sunlight never reaches here, not even the faintest ghost of it. The only light is life itself. Around you, faint glows drift like stars. Some fade as you approach, others flare, a quiet communication between species that have never seen a dawn. It's peaceful in a strange way, this abyss. Peaceful because everything here accepts the rules. There's no struggle against what cannot change. There's only existence, pure and deliberate. And still, we go deeper, following the pull of curiosity into the silent world below. The pressure grows, the darkness thickens, and the creatures grow stranger still. But they are not the villains of this world. They are its inheritors. The deeper we go, the more we see that what frightens us is only nature freed from our need for light. The descent is long, and it's only just begun. The twilight ahead waits with new shapes and softer glows, each more impossible than the last, each exactly as it must be. The light is almost gone now. Above you, the faintest shimmer still trembles in the water. a distant memory of daylight trying to survive. But as you drift lower, that last blue fades into something softer, thinner, like fabric stretched too far. The ocean grows dim, the temperature steadier, the silence heavier. This is the twilight zone, a realm that never truly sees the sun. Everything here lives between light and dark, in the long half-shadow that separates day from the abyss. It's a strange place, not yet night, no longer day, but something in between. And it's here that the ocean begins to show its most haunting beauty. At around 200 meters below the surface, sunlight still lingers, though barely. It filters down as a ghostly radiance, too weak to reveal colour, just enough to draw silhouettes against a background of perpetual dusk. This is the layer where the rules of the surface no longer apply. The fish of the upper ocean, with their bright scales and lively motions, have vanished. In their place drift beings shaped for concealment, for patience, for long hunger. They move slowly, conserving every bit of energy, because down here, food falls from above like rare snow. Small fragments of dead plankton, discarded shells, and the bodies of creatures that once swam in sunlight. It's called marine snow, a soft, constant rain of life's remains. Every particle that drifts past you carries the memory of the bright world above, now becoming nourishment for this dim one below. The first thing you notice in this twilight world is how alive the dark truly is. It moves, it flickers, it hums quietly in rhythm with unseen wings and fins. Tiny creatures called zooplankton, smaller than grains of rice, float upward and downward each day in the largest migration on Earth. At night, they rise to the surface to feed, and as morning comes, they sink again into the safety of darkness. This migration involves billions of individuals travelling hundreds of meters twice a day. Imagine a river of life flowing endlessly up and down, a silent tide of translucent bodies shifting with the rhythm of the sun they'll never see. Each carries faint light, small dots that shimmer like embers scattered through black water. If you could see it from afar, it would look as though the sea itself was breathing. The creatures here have begun to glow not because they want to, but because they must. Bioluminescence is everywhere now, not a rare trick, but a shared language. The light comes from chemical reactions, luciferin, luciferase, oxygen, a quiet alchemy inside their bodies. Some use it to lure prey closer, a small blink that looks like something edible. Others use it as camouflage, shining faintly beneath themselves to erase their own shadow against the dim light from above. It's called counter-illumination, a delicate balance between being seen and unseen. To us, it would look eerie, unnatural, a body that emits light to disappear. But down here, it's simply logic. You pass a school of lanternfish, one of the most common species in this zone. Each carries a line of glowing dots along its body, like tiny ship lights marking the edge of a fleet. They move together, their flashes synchronized, a drifting constellation that seems to have broken free of the night sky. Their scales catch what little light remains, turning it into liquid silver. They rise at dusk to feed near the surface, then sink again before dawn, following the invisible clock that governs this entire realm. Every movement here is timed to the faint heartbeat of light. A jellyfish drifts past, slow and deliberate, each pulse of its bell propelling it through the dense water. Its body is almost transparent, but around the edges, faint sparks trace patterns that seem to move even when the animal is still. These patterns confuse predators, making it impossible to tell where the creature begins or ends. It's a defense built not from strength or speed, but from illusion. Down here, survival depends as much on invisibility as endurance. Everything that glows is both a risk and a necessity. To glow is to reveal, but to stay dark is to vanish completely. Every pulse of light is a gamble. The twilight zone stretches from 200 to 1,000 meters, a vast band of transition where life grows stranger with every metre. It is not empty. It teems with creatures, each adapted to the thinning light in ways that seem impossible. The bristlemouth, a small needle-toothed fish, might be the most abundant vertebrate on the planet, numbering in the quadrillions. They're rarely seen by human eyes, yet their combined biomass outweighs all the land mammals on Earth. They flash briefly when startled, a warning or confusion tactic, and then fade again into shadow. The sea is full of them, invisible armies drifting through the gloom, unseen but vital to the ocean's balance. And then there's the stoplight loose jaw, a predator with a name as peculiar as its anatomy. Its lower jaw hangs open like a trap, hinged by thin strips of muscle, allowing it to snap shut in an instant. It carries two kinds of a light, one red, one green. Red light doesn't travel far underwater, so to most creatures here it's invisible. The loose jaw uses that secret colour like a flashlight only it can see. It scans for prey without revealing itself, an assassin moving through the dark with invisible vision. Its teeth are long and curved, transparent as glass, designed to pierce without resistance. It's not a monster, though it looks like one. It's a perfect solution to a perfect problem. The deeper you go, the slower everything becomes. Light dictates rhythm in the shallow sea, but down here time feels different. There are no day-night cycles, no tides that matter, only endless dusk. The animals have internal clocks that still follow surface patterns, but those rhythms are loose, drifting, like the currents themselves. If you could stay long enough, you might begin to feel it. The strange calm that comes from a world without hurry. The ocean here is slow, not because it's empty, but because it has learned to wait. The human eye isn't built for this level of darkness. Our pupils can't open wide enough, our rods and cones can't stretch far enough to read this dimness. If you were really here, you'd see almost nothing, yet around you millions of lights would be blinking. The fish would see you before you even knew they were near. Many have eyes that gather light thousands of times more efficiently than ours. Some have tubular eyes pointing upward to catch silhouettes against the faint glow above. Others have secondary lenses on the sides of their heads, widening their field of view so no movement goes unnoticed. In the deep, seeing even a shadow can be the difference between feeding and being fed upon. As you drift lower, shapes begin to lose their meaning. The outlines of fish, jellyfish and plankton blur until they become part of the water itself. It's as if everything here has learned the same trick. Merge with the dark and you cannot be found. Even the predators follow this rule. They're slow, careful, almost patient. The black dragonfish, for instance, glides with barely any motion at all. Its body absorbs almost all light, making it one of the darkest creatures known. When it opens its mouth, however, its teeth shine faintly, creating a contrast so sharp it can blind smaller prey for a fraction of a second. That's all it needs. One motion, one gulp, and the lights go out again. Every few minutes something unexpected drifts past. An unfamiliar silhouette, a brief flash of colour, a motion that seems almost deliberate. A comb jelly appears, its body refracting the faintest light into shimmering rainbows, like oil on water. It doesn't produce its own light. It bends what little light remains, scattering it through rows of tiny hair-like structures called cilia. It's not bioluminescence, but diffraction. The deep sea's quieter cousin of glow. It's beautiful, fragile, and utterly alien. You could watch it for minutes before realizing it hasn't moved at all. It's the current carrying you both along, suspended in silence. The deeper you drift, the more your sense of scale disappears. The vastness becomes personal, almost intimate. You're surrounded by millions of living things, yet it feels like solitude. The darkness absorbs distance. A fish a metre away feels as close as one brushing your hand. You begin to understand why this place unsettles people. It removes all reference points. There's no horizon, no sky, no floor. just infinite gradations of dark, alive with quiet movement. The human mind, built for edges and landmarks, starts to reach for meaning and finds only motion. And yet, despite that unease, there's peace here too. Everything you see belongs completely. There's no waste, no excess. Every creature, every pulse of light, every silent drift is perfectly balanced with the rest. The Twilight Zone is not a place of chaos. It's precision disguised as mystery. The eerie beauty of it comes from its truth. Nothing here pretends to be anything it's not. The ocean has stripped life down to function, and what remains is strange only because it's pure. If you were to look up now, you'd see the last trace of daylight as a faint silver ceiling far above, unreachable. Look down, and the black stretches endlessly, featureless and still. Somewhere below lies the abyss proper, where no sunlight has ever reached, where pressure multiplies beyond comprehension, and where the truly alien begins. But for now, in this dim middle ground, the sea feels almost calm. It's the pause between light and night, where the world holds its breath. You drift past another shoal of glowing fish, their movements slow and deliberate. They pulse in soft rhythm, not random but patterned. Some scientists believe these flashes are a kind of language, a series of signals used for mating or spacing or warning. If so, it's a silent conversation happening all around you, spoken entirely in light. To our eyes it looks chaotic, to them it's order. They speak through blinks, through intervals and duration, through colours we barely perceive. Down here, communication doesn't need words. It needs only light and patience. Farther below, a sudden flare breaks the calm. A predator has struck. The flash is brief but brilliant, followed by a slow swirl of disturbed particles. Within seconds, the scene returns to darkness. Death here is quiet, efficient, necessary. The sea doesn't mourn or celebrate. It continues, patient as gravity. And through all of this, one truth remains constant. The deeper we go, the more our instincts fail us. We are creatures of air and light, and when both are stripped away, we begin to project meaning where there is only adaptation. We call these beings monsters because they remind us of a life stripped to essentials. But to them, we would be the strange ones, fragile, gas-filled, blind in the dark, clumsy under pressure. The eerie symmetry of it is almost comforting. The twilight drift stretches on for hundreds of meters, an endless slope into darkness. It feels like falling without moving, like time suspended. Occasionally a current passes, bringing warmth from above or cold from below, a reminder that the ocean never stands still. Even here the water circulates, carrying nutrients, guiding migrations, linking the top of the world to its bottom. Every creature you've seen depends on those unseen flows, the slow heartbeat of the planet itself. Eventually, the faint blue above fades completely. You've reached the edge where twilight becomes night. The pressure is hundreds of times greater than what you feel at the surface. A human body would collapse here without protection, crushed by the sheer weight of water. And yet thousands of species live comfortably in this depth. To them, this is home. The last traces of light flicker once more, faint sparks drifting upward like reverse stars. The darkness ahead thickens into the true abyss. You can feel it even without seeing it. The gravity of silence, the sense that the world itself grows older as you fall. The creatures here are older too. Their lineages stretch back millions of years, survivors of epochs and extinctions, each shaped by the long patience of the deep. And so, you continue to drift. The light above is gone now. Ahead lies a darkness complete enough to erase all thought of the surface. What waits below is life redefined once again, slower, stranger, quieter. Down there, the pressure will no longer just shape bodies. It will sculpt existence itself, and the silence will grow so dense, so total, that it becomes the only sound left. The light is gone now. The water around you no longer glows with memory or movement, only a faint grey haze that could be your eyes trying to invent something to hold on to. The descent has carried you into a realm where sound, not sight, defines reality. This is the beginning of the abyssal zone, where sunlight never reaches, where pressure becomes a language of its own and silence has weight. It isn't the silence of a quiet room or a paused breath. It's a living stillness shaped by density and distance, by the slow compression of everything that tries to exist here. The world at these depths doesn't echo, it absorbs. Every sound, every vibration is swallowed by the sea before it can return. At 1,000 meters below the surface, the pressure has grown to 100 times that of the air around you now. Every square inch of your body, if you were truly here, would bear the weight of a small car. Yet the creatures of this realm drift without strain. They have no lungs to collapse, no gas sacs to burst, no bones to shatter. They are soft, fluid, perfectly tuned to the crush that would destroy almost anything else. The human imagination likes to think of survival as strength, but here it's the opposite. To survive in the deep is to yield. Rigidity breaks, flexibility endures. The temperature has dropped to near freezing, about 2 degrees Celsius, but the water never freezes. Salt keeps it liquid, heavy, restless. The currents are slow but constant, carrying tiny particles of life from above, the last offerings from the world of light. Down here, those particles are everything. Each flake of marine snow, each fragment of drifting matter, becomes food for entire ecosystems. The ocean at this depth is both vast and intimate. Every small motion connects to something unseen. Every death above feeds a life below. If you listen closely, not with your ears but with the part of your mind that recognizes pattern, you might begin to notice that the silence isn't total. It has texture. There's a low hum of vibration that travels through the water, the kind that instruments can measure but human hearing can't quite grasp. Whales passing miles away send songs that stretch and bend in this pressure. Their call slowed into deep, trembling notes that carry farther than any sound on land. Sometimes these sounds reach all the way to the seafloor, where strange creatures detect them not as melody but as motion. To them, sound is pressure. A voice is a push in the water. The world itself is a continuous conversation between forces we can't perceive. The silence of the abyss isn't empty. It's full of restraint. Every creature here has adapted to move as little as possible, to exist quietly, to waste nothing. Most fish drift rather than swim. They use the faint rise and fall of water temperature to guide their movement. Muscles contract only when they must. Even their hearts beat slowly, saving energy for survival instead of speed. In this place, time itself seems to slow down. There's no rush because nothing changes quickly. The deep is patient. It waits, and everything within it learns to wait too. The first of the abyssal creatures appear now. They don't glow as brightly as the ones above. Their light is subtle, often hidden, revealed only when startled. The grenadier fish, for example, glides close to the seafloor with a long tapering tail and a face that looks almost human in its melancholy. Its eyes are large, its mouth slightly open as if always on the verge of speaking. It feeds on the rain of particles drifting down from above, swallowing them with slow, deliberate motions. There is no abundance here, only endurance. Each meal could be the last for weeks, so nothing is wasted. Nearby, a sea cucumber lies on the soft sediment, its body translucent, pulsing faintly. It's not beautiful by any usual measure, but there's a kind of calm dignity in the way it exists, a quiet rhythm to its movements as it sifts the seafloor for food. Around it, brittle stars spread their spindly arms, waiting for the next flake of organic matter to drift close enough to catch. Their world is a patient one. The deep sea floor is not barren. It's covered with life so slow and so still that it often goes unnoticed. a living blanket over a silent landscape. The pressure here doesn't just shape bodies, it sculpts existence itself. There's no sudden movement, no burst of activity. Even reproduction happens slowly, delicately. Some species release eggs that drift for months before hatching. Others reproduce asexually, dividing themselves in the dark to ensure continuity. There's no need for urgency. The abyss measures time differently, in cycles of temperature and current, in the slow decay of matter falling from above. It is a world built on patience. The sound of a submersible would seem like thunder here. Its lights would pierce the dark like an alien sun, its thrusters stirring currents that haven't moved in years. When scientists visit these depths, the creatures don't flee. They simply fade into the darkness, letting the disturbance pass. They've survived worse. The pressure here has been constant for millions of years. Human presence is just another ripple. It's easy to call this world eerie, but that word doesn't quite fit. Eerie suggests fear, uncertainty. What exists here is something older, steadier. It's the same stillness that once filled the world before sound, before thought, before anything that needed to name what it saw. Silence here isn't the absence of life. It's life in balance with itself. At 2,000 meters, the pressure reaches 200 atmospheres. A single cubic meter of this water weighs more than a ton. The light from above is gone entirely now, replaced by the faint glimmers of bioluminescence that drift like embers in a bottomless night. Each flicker is both a warning and a hope. A small shrimp might flash to startle a predator, or a fish might release a slow pulse to attract a mate. Even the faintest glow feels enormous in this vast darkness. You might expect this environment to be lifeless, but it's not. There are fields of anemones that sway in slow motion, their tentacles sensing for food. There are giant isopods, pale armoured crustaceans that look like enormous pillbugs, crawling methodically across the seabed. They feed on whatever the ocean delivers: dead whales, fallen fish, pieces of wood that somehow make it this far. When a whale carcass sinks, it becomes a feast that can last for decades. The sea floor transforms into a community centred on decay, an entire ecosystem built on death. But down here, death isn't tragic. It's the foundation of life. The silence holds it all together, turning loss into rhythm. If you could reach out and touch the sediment, it would feel soft and fine, like powder. It's made from the slow accumulation of dead plankton shells, volcanic dust, and minerals settling over millions of years. In some places, it's thousands of meters thick, a record of the planet's memory written in darkness. Every layer tells a story of change, warm ages, ice ages, extinctions, renewals, but it tells it quietly, without hurry or drama. The ocean floor keeps time in grains, not seconds. The fish here have learned to use the silence as shelter. Sound can attract attention, and attention can mean death. The rat-tail fish, for example, can remain motionless for hours, blending into the stillness until it's indistinguishable from the background. Its slow movements stir almost nothing. Its eyes reflect no light. It lives by becoming part of the silence itself. Even the predators have grown patient. The abyssal cusk eel hovers motionless, sensing the faint vibrations of potential prey. When it strikes, it does so in near total stillness, the motion so efficient that the surrounding water barely stirs. There's no chase here, no spectacle. The deep doesn't waste energy on drama. It values precision and endurance above all else. As strange as it sounds, the pressure here creates a kind of stability. The water is so dense, the temperature so constant, that storms above have no reach. Waves, wind, weather, none of them matter here. The deep is its own climate, unchanging for centuries at a time. Creatures can live their entire lives without ever sensing a difference between day and night, summer and winter. The silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the absence of change. Yet within that constancy lies something profound. The deep sea is the Earth's archive. Every particle that sinks here carries the story of a world in motion above. Dust from deserts, ash from volcanoes, fragments of microscopic shells. All of it drifts down slowly, settling in layers that never disappear. If you could read them, you'd see the timeline of the planet stretching back millions of years. The abyss keeps history without ever speaking it. Sometimes, a deep-sea tremor disturbs the calm, a distant earthquake sending ripples through the silence. The vibrations travel for miles, slow and low. The creatures don't panic. They've felt such things before. The ocean adapts always. Even silence can move when the earth stirs beneath it. And when it does, the abyss reminds us that it's not lifeless, not still. It's alive with waiting. The eerie feeling that grows in you now isn't fear of what you might see. It's the realization that this place has been here all along, unchanged, indifferent to our existence. While civilizations rise and fall above, while forests grow and burn, while cities bloom and vanish, the deep sea remains. The same silence that surrounds you now surrounded the first fish that ever swam here, the first bacteria that learned to feed on heat instead of light. This is the planet's oldest piece, untouched and unbroken. Some explorers describe this feeling as awe, others as vertigo. To be so deep beneath the surface, surrounded by weight and darkness, is to feel both insignificant and included. You are part of something vast that doesn't need you, yet still allows you to exist. The silence presses against your suit, against your mind, until it becomes familiar, almost comforting. The pressure isn't an enemy, it's a reminder. Everything that survives here has learned to carry the world's weight gracefully. There are moments when a faint glimmer appears on the horizon, small dots moving together in the distance. It's a shoal of bioluminescent squid, their lights pulsing in unison. The rhythm is slow, almost hypnotic. For a few seconds, the darkness feels less absolute. Then they turn, the lights fade, and you're alone again. That's the rhythm of this world. Light, then dark, motion, then stillness. Silence that swells and recedes like a tide you can't see. You begin to realize that the deeper the sea grows, the quieter it becomes. Not because there's less life, but because life has learned to move within the limits of silence. It's not emptiness, it's mastery. Every creature has found a way to exist without disturbing the calm, to live without leaving a trace. The stillness is not a void. It's the deepest form of balance the world has ever known. And as you drift farther down, the silence thickens. It no longer feels like the absence of sound, but like a substance filling the water, pressing gently against you from every direction. You're aware now that there are more layers still beneath you, zones where even these faint glimmers of life will fade, where light becomes legend, where the silence itself seems to breathe. That's where we're headed next, into the world where sight gives way entirely to light made from flesh, where stillness becomes survival, and where the creatures of the deep turn their silence into something that burns softly against the dark. You're far below the reach of sunlight now. The water around you isn't just dark, it's complete, thick with shadow, a silence so deep it feels alive. The surface world, with its shimmer and noise, could be another planet. Yet even here, in a darkness older than any human memory, something sees you. The abyss is not blind. It's filled with eyes, strange, perfect, and infinitely adapted to the endless night. Some glow softly from within, others stare upward with glassy stillness, and some have long since abandoned vision entirely, surrendering to a world where light no longer means life. This is the realm of eyes built by pressure, darkness, and need. Vision, as humans know it, depends on light. Our eyes are tuned to a narrow band of wavelengths, a delicate spectrum that represents only a sliver of what truly exists. We live in a world where light defines meaning, edges, shapes, colours. Take that away, and the human brain begins to fail. It struggles to orient, to judge distance, to even believe in space itself. But in the deep sea, life has written new rules for seeing. Evolution didn't stop when the light did. It changed direction, sculpting eyes that work not in brightness but in absence. At 1,000 meters and beyond, sunlight is nothing more than a rumour. The only photons that reach this depth are scattered remnants, too weak to illuminate, too brief to rely on. Yet creatures still seek them. Many have eyes proportionally larger than their heads, vast domes of tissue filled with reflective layers. The hatchetfish, for example, has tubular eyes pointing sharply upward, waiting to catch the silhouette of something moving above. Its vision is specialised for a single task: spot the faintest motion against the barely there glow filtering down from the world it will never see. That's all it needs: one shadow, one strike, one meal. Then there's the barrel-eye fish, a creature so strange it feels like science fiction drawn into reality. Its transparent forehead, filled with clear fluid, houses 2 green orbs that rotate inside its skull. Those orbs are its eyes. They can swivel upward through the transparent dome to track prey in the dim glow above, then rotate forward to navigate. In pictures it looks alien, unsettling, almost like a machine made from flesh. But every part of it has purpose. That dome protects the eyes from jellyfish stings when it moves through colonies of tentacles. The green pigment filters out bioluminescent light, helping it spot real movement instead of distraction. It's a creature built by precision, not imagination. If you were to turn off your lights completely and drift in the black, the ocean wouldn't be empty. It would be alive with flashes, pulses and sparks. Eyes signalling, feeding, searching. The abyss is full of bioluminescent vision, light used not to see the world but to make it visible. The flashlight fish carries colonies of glowing bacteria beneath its eyes. It can blink these lights on and off using a flap of skin, flashing short bursts to communicate or confuse. When startled, it shuts the lights instantly and vanishes, a ghost erased from the water. Some deep-sea squid have built-in headlights, small photophores beneath their eyes that cast a downward beam. They use them to spot prey, much like the beam of a diver's lamp, but far softer, far quieter. In this world, the ability to see is a constant trade-off. Bigger eyes mean more sensitivity, but also vulnerability. Eyes reflect light. Light draws attention. Predators exploit this. The stoplight loosejaw, for instance, sees in red, a colour invisible to almost all other deep-sea creatures. It uses red, bioluminescent light to illuminate prey without being seen, a private wavelength in a world that's otherwise monochrome. To its victims, the loosejaw is just another shadow. To the loosejaw, the abyss is visible in secret colour. It's the evolutionary equivalent of seeing through walls. But not all creatures fight for vision. Many have let it go completely. At depths below 3,000 metres, some fish and crustaceans have eyes reduced to pale patches of skin, light receptors that detect change but not shape. Others have no trace of vision left at all. The darkness is total, and in such a place, eyes become unnecessary. These creatures navigate through touch, vibration, and chemistry. They sense movement through the pressure waves in the water, or the faint chemical trails of other organisms drifting nearby. To them, light is an outdated language, one that no longer serves purpose. The human instinct is to pity that, to imagine blindness as loss. But in the deep sea, blindness is freedom. Light is rare, but deception is not. Many of the glowing signals you see are lures, false promises made of chemistry and need. The anglerfish, perhaps the most iconic of all, uses a luminous orb dangling from its head to draw prey closer. Its light flickers gently, mimicking the movements of small plankton or larval fish. When something curious approaches, jaws like steel traps close around it. Its teeth are long, translucent, and angled inward to prevent escape. The glow above its head isn't just light, it's a story. a lie that works perfectly in a place where seeing means trusting what little you can. The eyes of deep-sea creatures are often mismatched, asymmetrical, or completely redefined. The brown-snout spookfish, for instance, uses mirrors instead of lenses. Its eyes are divided. One part sees upward using refraction like normal eyes, while the other uses reflective tissue to look downward. This mirror-based vision is so efficient that it allows the fish to track both predators and prey simultaneously. It's the only vertebrate known to use mirrors for vision. Even at the molecular level, its eyes are unlike any other on Earth. What seems monstrous to us is simply the result of millions of years of careful necessity. If you look closely at these creatures, you start to notice that their gaze feels strange. There's no recognition in it, no shared awareness. They don't see you as something alive or not alive. They see motion, contrast, wavelength. Their vision isn't about meaning. It's about probability. To them, the difference between a potential meal and a predator is measured in milliseconds of light. They don't need beauty or symmetry. They need information. Their eyes are tools, not windows. The deeper you drift, the more that realization takes hold. Everything you see is adapted not for pleasure or art, but for efficiency. A dragonfish glides past, its body long and black, its head lined with photophores that glow faintly along its jaw. Its eyes are proportionally enormous yet almost empty, fixed in a stare that seems to pass through everything. It's not looking at you, it's measuring light against dark, motion against stillness. Its world is built on differences so subtle that to human eyes they wouldn't even exist. In this environment, evolution has turned vision into something closer to instinct. Some animals can detect flashes of light lasting less than a millisecond. Others see polarization, patterns of light vibration invisible to us, that help them distinguish living glow from background noise. A few species, like certain deep-sea shrimp, can even detect ultraviolet light emitted during the chemical reactions of bioluminescence. To them, the abyss is full of signals we'll never perceive, a coded universe written entirely in glow. And yet, for all this precision, there's still mystery. Some creatures emit light that seems to have no clear function. Tiny rhythmic pulses that serve neither as camouflage nor communication. It's possible that some of these lights are simply byproducts, evolutionary leftovers from ancient ancestors. Or perhaps they are messages we don't yet understand, frequencies of life exchanged in ways beyond our comprehension. The abyss is full of such questions. Every answer only reveals another layer of purpose. The strangest thing about eyes in the abyss is how they mirror thought. In a sense, they are the mind of the ocean, constant watchers, silent recorders of motion, energy, and change. They represent the deep's awareness of itself. Each one is tuned to the smallest possible difference between nothing and something. And when you drift here long enough, you start to realize that this is how the abyss survives, by noticing what little there is, by turning scarcity into perception. Imagine the stillness now. The only sound is the slow hiss of your breath, the soft hum of your equipment, the faint crackle of distant shrimp. You move your light gently across the water, and for a moment hundreds of eyes flash in return. They don't reflect your beam like mirrors. They amplify it, turn it into something strange and alive. The light bounces through the water, scattered by eyes designed to catch it from every angle. It's as if the darkness itself is looking back. The human mind finds this unsettling for reasons deeper than fear. We rely on being the observer, not the observed. In the abyss, that balance shifts. Here, you are the one illuminated. Your light announces your presence to every creature within hundreds of meters. They see you long before you see them. The glow that feels like control on the surface becomes vulnerability down here. Your vision, your only comfort, becomes your betrayal. This reversal is the heart of the abyss's strangeness. It's not that it's hostile, it's simply indifferent. It doesn't hide from you. It just doesn't need to reveal itself. Everything here has adapted to see in ways that don't involve recognition or curiosity. They see to survive, not to understand. In a way, that's the purest form of perception there is, and so you drift deeper still, surrounded by watchers. Some have eyes the size of your fingernail, others the size of your fist. Some glow gently, some gleam faintly when your light catches them, and some, perhaps, are watching without light at all, sensing your heat, your vibration, your breath. You can't tell which. You never will. That's part of the quiet. The longer you stay, the more your mind begins to adjust. Shapes emerge in the dark where none existed before. Your eyes, desperate for patterns, start to invent. You think you see motion, but it's your own reflection in the glass. You think you see a glow, but it's your heartbeat echoing through your helmet. The abyss doesn't play tricks. It simply lets you meet your own limits. And when the realization settles that this darkness is not empty, that every flicker and shimmer around you is sight in some other form, you begin to feel the ocean's calm understanding. Down here, vision is not about beauty or fear. It's about presence. The creatures of the deep don't see the world as light and dark. They see gradients of existence. To them, you're just another source of motion, another brief flicker of energy drifting through the black. Far below, something glows for a moment, a slow, pulsing light rising from the deeper layers. It's not a single creature but a cluster, a bloom of small bioluminescent organisms moving together. The light drifts upward, then dissolves as quickly as it appeared, leaving you again in the quiet black. There's no drama in its vanishing, no farewell, just transition, the steady rhythm of a world that doesn't stop. And as you continue downward, you begin to understand what the abyss has been showing you all along. Vision here is not about seeing the world, it's about feeling it through light and absence, through patience and silence. Eyes in all their forms are the deep's way of remembering that life can always find a way to perceive, even in total darkness. You're surrounded by that truth now, floating in it, part of it. The watchers fade into the dark again, their lights blinking slowly, marking the edge of what comes next. Ahead, the pressure grows. The light fades completely. The eyes disappear, replaced by a new kind of perception, the glow that isn't vision at all but something older and deeper. It's the moment when light stops revealing and starts deceiving, when creatures use it not to see, but to survive. That's where the descent leads next, into the world where light itself becomes a weapon. At this depth, light is no longer a gift. It is not a symbol of warmth or safety or direction. It has become a weapon, sharp and deceptive, shaped by the long patience of evolution. The creatures that live here don't use it to see, they use it to trick, to confuse, to hunt and to hide. It is their tool, their defense, their camouflage. The deep has stripped light of its innocence. What was once a gentle messenger from the sun has become something strategic and dangerous, a language of survival whispered through flickers and pulses in the dark. You're deep enough now that sunlight is a myth. Even the faintest shimmer from above has been consumed by the weight of the ocean. The only light left is alive. It's made inside bodies, created by chemical reactions between luciferin and luciferous, oxygen and control. The process looks delicate, but it's an ancient kind of magic, older than the first trees, older than bones. In the blackness of the sea, light doesn't simply exist, it's built, cultivated and used. Every spark has intent. The anglerfish appears first, drifting in the still water like an idea suspended between hunger and patience. Its body is small and dark, its fins slow, almost absent. But above its head the lure glows, a pale blue dot trembling at the end of a thin spine. The fish doesn't move much. It doesn't need to. It waits. The glow pulses gently, mimicking the movement of a small creature. Something drifts close, drawn by curiosity or confusion. And then the mouth opens, a hinge of muscle and teeth that seems too large for such a fragile frame. The strike is instant. The light for a moment flares as prey is consumed, then dims again to its steady rhythm. The ocean remains quiet. Nothing else reacts. It has seen this happen 1,000 times. That glow above the anglerfish's head isn't part of its own body. It's a colony of bacteria, living symbiotically inside a small organ called the esker. The fish provides the bacteria with nutrients and protection. The bacteria provide light. Together they form a perfect partnership built on need. The fish controls the brightness by regulating oxygen flow, flicking it on and off like a living lantern. It is one of the purest examples of cooperation in nature, and one of the most unnerving. Light, the universal symbol of life, has become bait. Farther below, the same story repeats in countless variations. There are jellyfish that release clouds of glowing blue mucus when threatened, filling the water with phantom shapes that distract predators. There are shrimp that eject streams of luminous fluid, like underwater flares, before darting into the dark. Some squid drop glowing ink instead of black, creating decoys that shimmer for several seconds as they escape. Even plankton use light as alarm, flashing briefly when disturbed to alert larger predators to the presence of something that might eat them. Down here, light doesn't just illuminate, it manipulates. It's a signal, a decoy, a weapon of misdirection. The deep-sea dragonfish takes this to another level. Its body is nearly black, so dark it absorbs almost all light, making it one of the most efficient stealth predators known. Along its sides are rows of tiny photophores, organs that emit faint, controlled light. It uses them for counter-illumination, glowing just enough to erase its own shadow. But the dragonfish carries another secret, a bioluminescent barbel that dangles from its chin like the angler's lure, and a mouth lined with teeth so transparent they're invisible even in the faintest light. To its prey, it's a harmless shimmer. To the dragonfish, it's dinner. Its most remarkable weapon, though, is invisible to nearly every other creature in the deep. The dragonfish can emit red light, a wavelength that doesn't travel far underwater. To almost all eyes in this realm, red is darkness. But the dragonfish can see it. It uses this private colour like a sniper scope, scanning for prey in total secrecy. It moves unseen, hunts unseen, kills unseen. It is a master of invisible illumination, the rare predator that can light the world without revealing itself. In the language of the deep, that's the ultimate power, to shine without being seen. Nearby, another kind of hunter drifts, a siphonophore, a creature that looks like a single organism but is actually a colony of many, each specialised for a different task. Some form the body, some the feeding structures, others the lights. Together they create living chains that can stretch for dozens of meters, glowing in rhythmic patterns that hypnotise smaller creatures into approaching. Once close enough, the prey is stung and paralysed, its movement absorbed by the stillness. The light fades again. The pattern resumes. Every species here has its own relationship with light. Some wield it aggressively, others defensively, and some both at once. The hatchetfish uses light to vanish. Its belly glows faintly, matching the dim blue of the water above so that predators looking up can't see its silhouette. It's a delicate balance, too bright, and it becomes a target, too dim, and it casts a shadow. It adjusts constantly, reacting to the faintest shift in the light from above. The precision is astonishing. Each tiny muscle beneath its skin controls the brightness of individual photophores, a living array that adapts in real time. It's not dramatic, it's simply perfect. Light here is about control. Those who can manipulate it survive, those who can't become part of the drift. Some species, like certain deep-sea squid, can change the colour, shape and timing of their light pulses, creating complex patterns that scientists still can't fully decode. These patterns might be used for communication or mimicry, or intimidation. A sudden burst of light can stun a predator for just long enough to escape. A steady glow can signal readiness to mate. A series of short flashes might mean danger, or might mean nothing at all, a kind of biological static meant to confuse. The ambiguity is part of the defense. In a world where almost everything glows, knowing what light means is the difference between life and death. There's beauty in this deception, but also unease. Light, which for us represents clarity and revelation, has become the opposite here. It hides truth rather than exposing it. Every flash carries the possibility of danger. The deep has turned illumination into illusion. What you see is never certain. Every glow might be a lure, every flicker a trick. It's an ecosystem built entirely on trust betrayed by survival, and yet there's an elegance to it too. Watching it feels like seeing intelligence without thought, strategy without intention. The deep doesn't think, it adapts. The result is a choreography of light so complex it feels designed, but it isn't. It's the slow arithmetic of time and pressure, of millions of years of creatures testing, failing and trying again, until only what works remains. The deep teaches that beauty doesn't come from intention, it comes from necessity perfected. The glow of the abyss isn't random. It follows rhythms older than language. Many creatures flash in cycles that mirror the movement of tides and currents, their bioluminescence synchronized across vast distances. To us, it would look like galaxies of light blooming and fading, like constellations rearranging themselves in the black. But it isn't decoration, it's coordination. Some scientists believe that these light patterns help species recognize one another in the endless dark, preventing wasted energy on mistaken encounters. The ocean has no walls, no boundaries, so light becomes the only border, the only way to define where one life ends and another begins. When you move your beam across the abyss, you notice something unsettling. The creatures don't flee from the light, they absorb it. Their skins reflect almost nothing. The beam disappears into them, swallowed whole. These are animals evolved not just to live in the dark, but to make it their armour. The black dragonfish, the viper fish, the fang-tooth, all covered in microscopic structures that trap and diffuse light, rendering them invisible even under direct illumination. To our eyes, they're simply gone. The light passes over them, but they remain shadows in a world that belongs entirely to them. Occasionally you see flashes that seem too coordinated to be coincidence, bursts of light spreading through the water in ripples almost like conversation. Scientists call this bioluminescent signalling. A predator strikes, prey scatter, light flares as a defensive display, and other creatures respond, either hiding or taking advantage of the confusion. The result is a chain reaction of glows and fades, a cascade of communication and chaos. It lasts only seconds, then the dark returns. The abyss resets. The calm is absolute once more. The longer you watch, the more you begin to realise that this world's violence is subtle. There are no screams, no chases, no splashes. The deep kills with patience, with chemistry, with quiet light. It's a place where survival is less about power and more about precision. The creatures here are not monsters. They're masters of equilibrium. They take only what they must, expend only what they have to. Even their weapons are efficient. The light they wield costs energy, and energy here is everything. Every flash must justify itself. Imagine for a moment what it means to live this way, to exist in perpetual night, relying on a resource that vanishes the instant it's used. To know that every flicker you emit could feed or doom you. The deep-sea creatures live on that edge, every moment a calculation of risk and need. Their lives are made of light rationed like breath. In that, they're not so different from us. We too live by balancing what we reveal and what we conceal, what we show and what we keep hidden. The difference is that for them, the stakes are elemental. Far below, the faintest light flickers, long, horizontal, like a drifting thread. It's the glow of a siphonophore colony, stretching across the water in slow motion, its rhythm pulsing like a heartbeat. Each cell in the colony emits light independently, yet together they move as one. It's a soft, mesmerizing pattern, hypnotic in its calm. Then, abruptly, it vanishes. The colony folds itself into darkness, and the sea is empty again. In the quiet that follows, you begin to notice the lingering afterimages on your eyes. You've been staring at light so faint, so intermittent, that your brain continues to see it even after it's gone. The human visual system wasn't designed for this environment. It fills the absence with memory, painting light where there is none. The deep doesn't play tricks on you. Your own mind does. And then, in the distance, another flash appears, different this time, steady and rhythmic, a slow pulse that doesn't fade. It's not a predator or prey, it's communication, a beacon marking territory or calling a mate across the vastness. It's the deep's rarest phenomenon, deliberate light, used not as deception but as connection. In this immense, crushing dark, it's a reminder that even here life still reaches out. Even here, among predators and silence, there is something that glows just to be seen. But soon, even that fades. The last flickers vanish into black, leaving you surrounded by nothing but pressure and the faint hum of your instruments. The ocean has withdrawn its light, closing its stories one by one. What remains now is pure darkness, so deep it feels like substance, not absence. And within that darkness waits the next transformation, the hunger that drives the deep, the endless appetite that shapes every glowing lure and every waiting jaw. Because below this depth, even light itself isn't enough. The energy of the abyss comes from scarcity, from patience, from the eternal search for what drifts down from above. The creatures grow hungrier, their mouths larger, their bodies stranger. The deep becomes not just quiet, but ravenous. That's where the descent leads next, into the hunger below, where survival becomes the ocean's oldest instinct, and where the line between fear and beauty begins to blur completely. The darkness has thickened into something that feels solid now, like a weight pressing in from all directions. You're drifting in a place where the ocean no longer behaves like water, where motion feels sluggish and thought itself seems to slow. The pressure is immense, thousands of pounds on every inch of what would be your body if you were really here, and yet the life below moves as though the weight doesn't exist. The deep has moulded it into forms that can bear anything, and that endurance has come with a price. Down here, beauty no longer matters. The only truth that remains is hunger. Everything that survives at this depth does so because it has learned to wait, to stretch, to consume whatever chance delivers. This is not the hunger of appetite, it's the hunger of existence, the need to sustain against impossible odds. In the deep sea, food is a kind of miracle. There are no plants here, no photosynthesis, no sunlight to feed the cycle. The only nourishment comes from above, drifting down in a slow snow of decay. Every second, millions of microscopic fragments fall through the water column. Bits of dead plankton, fecal pellets, tiny skeletons of creatures that once floated near the surface. It is called marine snow, and it is the slowest, most patient form of rain on Earth. It takes weeks, sometimes months, for a single flake to fall a few kilometers. By the time it reaches the abyss, most of it has already been eaten several times over. What finally arrives is dust, nutrient-rich, faintly luminous in the light of your submersible, and precious beyond description. The creatures below live on it, fight for it, build entire lives around catching it before it sinks too far into the sediment. A grenadier fish drifts past, its long tail tapering into a thin whip. It moves with almost no effort, its wide eyes fixed on the slow fall of snow from above. It waits for the right particle, one dense enough to justify motion, one worth burning the calories it will never replace. It has a mouth designed for scooping and sifting, a body made for conserving. Every twitch is calculation, every heartbeat is rationed. When it finally moves, it opens its jaws and lets the current do most of the work, gathering what little drifts near. It feeds not like a predator, but like a caretaker of the ocean's dust. But not everything here can afford patience. Some have taken hunger to extremes that defy proportion. The gulper eel, for example, carries a mouth that can open wider than its entire body. It rarely finds food, so when it does, it takes everything. Its stomach expands like a balloon, stretching to accommodate whatever fits. It has been known to swallow prey nearly its own size. It doesn't eat often, but when it does, it makes the moment count. The shape looks grotesque to us, distended, elastic, unsettling, but down here grotesque is just another word for efficient. The abyss favours extremes because moderation doesn't survive here. The viperfish glides from the blackness, its teeth long and needle thin, so long they can't fit inside its mouth. They curve upward, locking outside its jaw when it closes. Its body carries a faint line of photophores, dim blue lights that flicker irregularly, luring prey in the same way lightning bugs draw each other through summer air. The fish remains motionless, its lights pulsing just enough to suggest something alive nearby. When a smaller fish drifts close, the viperfish strikes in a blur so fast that cameras have struggled to record it. Then, silence again. The light dims. The hunt ends before it even feels like it began. To live in the deep is to know starvation intimately. Many species go weeks, even months without a real meal. Their metabolisms have slowed to a crawl, their bodies adapted to long gaps between nourishment. Some have turned cannibalistic, feeding on smaller members of their own kind. Others swallow anything that drifts close enough to fit, no matter how indigestible. In this world, survival isn't about selection, it's about opportunity. The abyss rewards the ones who take what they can, when they can, without hesitation. Occasionally, fortune arrives in the form of catastrophe. When a large animal dies near the surface, a whale, a shark, a massive fish, its body begins a long descent through the water. It sinks slowly, twisting in the current, shedding fragments as it falls. To the world above, it's a death. To the deep, it's a harvest. Scientists call it a whale fall, and it's one of the most significant events in the abyssal ecosystem. As the carcass touches down on the seafloor, the silence breaks. The first arrivals are scavengers, giant isopods the size of dinner plates, their shells pale and smooth, crawling across the sediment with eerie precision. They swarm the body, their legs moving in slow coordination, their mandibles tearing at soft tissue. Their movements are not frantic, they're calm, deliberate, ritualistic. Next come the hagfish, long and slick, twisting their way inside through any opening they can find. They feed from within, pulling at muscle and fat, secreting slime to ward off competitors. They can go for months without food, but when it comes, they gorge until their skin stretches tight. Crabs gather too, along with deep-sea snails and worms, forming a living shroud around the whale. For weeks, the feast continues. Then months. The carcass becomes a landscape. As it decays, bacteria begin to consume what remains, producing chemicals that attract yet more life. Eventually, the bones themselves become home to new species, worms that feed on fat trapped within the marrow, microbes that break down sulfur. What began as death becomes a city, feeding generations of creatures that may never see another such meal. The whale fall can last for decades. That's the deep's greatest secret. Nothing here is wasted. Every motion, every death, every particle is used. Hunger governs everything, but it's not chaos. It's order built on scarcity. The creatures here don't compete the way land animals do. They rarely fight. Energy is too precious for conflict. Instead, they coexist by separation. each species tuned to a specific depth, a specific diet, a specific rhythm. The ocean enforces its peace through need. Still, the sight of these creatures can feel unsettling. Their mouths are too large, their teeth too long, their stomachs too elastic. They look exaggerated, distorted. But every one of those features has purpose. In the deep, where food is unpredictable, adaptation means readiness for the improbable. A creature that can swallow something twice its size lives longer than one that can't. A fish that can stretch its stomach saves energy that would be lost in frequent hunting. Even the translucent skin that exposes organs and bones isn't deformity, it's efficiency. Pigment costs energy. Here, nothing unnecessary survives. If you shine your light across the seafloor, you see faint movement, small shapes stirring the sediment, trails of disturbed dust spiralling upward. These are sea cucumbers and worms feeding on detritus, processing the ocean's remains through their bodies and excreting clean sediment behind them. They are the recyclers, the quiet custodians of the abyss. Without them, the deep would choke on its own accumulation. They are proof that even hunger can be balanced, that consumption can become caretaking when refined by necessity. The further you drift, the more you notice how still everything is. The hunger here doesn't roar or rage, it waits, it endures. The abyss is not desperate, it's patient. Every creature here embodies that patience. The rat-tailed fish, the amphipods, the ghostly shrimp. They all move with the rhythm of inevitability. They do not hurry toward food. They allow food to come to them. That patience gives the deep its quiet power. It's not a place of frenzy. It's a place of perfect restraint. There's a kind of wisdom in that. On the surface, hunger drives movement, migration, conflict. In the deep, it becomes stillness, focus, economy. A single meal here must sustain life for months. A single decision can mean survival or disappearance. The creatures of the abyss have become mathematicians of existence, calculating every motion, every spark of light, every beat of their slow hearts. Hunger has made them elegant in its way. And yet, there's also something haunting in this perfection. Every mouth, every glowing lure, every waiting shadow is a reminder of how thin the line between life and absence really is. The deep is full of mouths but almost no noise. The act of feeding happens in silence. There's no splash, no chase, no echo, only motion and stillness, alternating in precise balance. Hunger doesn't disturb the calm, it defines it. Sometimes the abyss gives glimpses of abundance. A carcass drifts in, or a current brings a surge of plankton from above. For a brief time, the water becomes alive with motion. Creatures gather, their lights flickering as they feed, their movements overlapping in an intricate ballet of need. Then, as quickly as it came, the moment ends. The water settles, the lights dim, everything returns to waiting. You might expect such a world to feel hopeless, but it doesn't. There's something strangely comforting about it. The idea that even here in the most desolate place on Earth, life persists not through violence, but through balance. The hunger below is not chaos. It's the ocean's discipline. It ensures that nothing is wasted, that every death sustains another, that the system endures no matter how little it receives. The creatures of this world carry that lesson in their bodies. The anglerfish, the gulper eel, the viper fish. They are symbols not of monstrosity but of resilience. They show what happens when life lets go of everything unnecessary and holds on only to what works. They are not beautiful by the standards of sunlight, but they are flawless by the laws of pressure and dark. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the rhythm of it. Not sound exactly, but movement. Slow pulses, faint ripples of water as things shift just enough to survive another hour. It's the heartbeat of a world that doesn't rush, that feeds only when the time is right. Hunger here is not something to escape. It's the foundation of all motion, all thought, all existence. And yet, even as the deep fulfills its hunger, It hides another truth. Some creatures down here do not feed on the rain from above at all. They rely on something else entirely, on chemistry, on minerals and gases seeping from the Earth's crust, on energy drawn from heat instead of light. There are places where the ocean floor cracks open and the planet itself feeds the sea, releasing clouds of hydrogen sulfide and methane. Around those vents, life thrives in ways that seem impossible, nourished not by sunlight, but by the Earth's own breath. That's where you're headed next, farther still, into the places where hunger transforms again, where creatures feed not on death, but on stone and fire, where the ocean's chemistry becomes life itself, and the boundary between biology and geology disappears completely. By now, the darkness has stopped feeling like darkness. It's become its own kind of atmosphere, dense, familiar, slow. The water no longer seems like something you move through. It feels like something that holds you in place. Sound has thinned to the dull murmur of your own presence. The beam from your light fades just a few meters ahead before dissolving into black, swallowed by the sheer thickness of the deep. You've been descending for what feels like forever, but the ocean keeps going. And as you drift lower, the bodies around you begin to change in ways that challenge everything you know about what life should look like. The creatures that live here no longer resemble anything from the surface. They are fluid, transparent, mutable. Their anatomy has left behind the logic of bones, symmetry, and skin. These are not simply animals. They are experiments in survival, blueprints written in pressure and patience. The first one you see drifts past slowly, like a torn ribbon of glass. It's a comb jelly, its delicate body shimmering faintly with a rainbow that isn't light but refraction. Tiny cilia beat in rows along its sides, scattering what little illumination reaches it into shifting colours. It has no brain, no bones, and barely any structure, yet it moves with elegance, every motion calculated by instinct shaped over hundreds of millions of years. It feeds on plankton, catching them with sticky filaments instead of teeth. If you reach out toward it, it folds away, collapsing on itself like silk. It's not fragile, it's perfectly adapted. At these depths, strength comes not from rigidity but from surrender. A few meters away, another creature drifts into view, and for a moment you might think it's a ghost. The transparent form of a pelican eel floats past, its body long and thread-like, its mouth stretched into a vast, loose pouch. When it opens, the entire front half of its body becomes a net. It can swallow prey several times its size, not through aggression but through design. The skin around its jaw is thin and elastic like a deep-sea balloon. Its tail glows faintly, a soft red lure swinging behind it in lazy arcs. The light pulses in slow rhythm, attracting curious fish that never realize what waits for them in the black ahead. It's not a fast hunter. It doesn't need to chase. It simply waits, patient as gravity, mouth open, ready for anything that happens to drift close enough to vanish. These creatures look alien because they belong to an environment where the usual rules of physics and biology blur together. At these depths, the pressure is more than 500 times what you feel at the surface. Any air pocket would collapse instantly. Hard shells would crack. Bones would crumble. Life here has solved that problem by abandoning solid form. Flesh is fluid. Organs are minimal. Some fish carry almost no muscle at all. Their bodies composed mostly of water at nearly the same density as the sea around them. This balance keeps them neutrally buoyant. They neither sink nor rise unless they choose to. Movement becomes thought itself. A slow tilt, a flick of a fin, a slight pulse of light. The abyssal snailfish is one of the few vertebrates known to live at these pressures, thousands of meters below the surface. Its skin is translucent, its body soft and gelatinous, its bones reduced to thin threads that would snap anywhere else. It doesn't fight the pressure, it harmonizes with it. Inside its tissues are special proteins called piezolites that protect its enzymes from being crushed. Its shape isn't built to resist the deep, it's built to belong to it. In images taken from submersibles, the snailfish looks almost unreal. A pale, fluttering ghost, drifting above the seafloor, its movements gentle, efficient, unconcerned. The deeper you go, the more you realise that everything here seems to have been redesigned by a different kind of mind. Eyes are placed where no eyes should be. Mouths open in impossible directions. Some creatures have bodies so elongated they resemble strands of thread. Others have condensed into floating orbs. There are worms that shimmer with metallic scales, crustaceans with translucent armour that reveals glowing organs inside, and fish whose fins stretch like ribbons for metres behind them. Evolution has been given infinite time and no boundaries here. It's not chaos, it's exploration. Each shape is a question answered by adaptation: how to eat, how to move, how to exist when light and gravity stop behaving in familiar ways. The gulper eel reappears, twisting lazily in the dark. Its tail ends in a small glowing bulb, a lure it uses not just for hunting, but for communication. It pulses with a steady rhythm, one that seems oddly intentional. Scientists suspect these lights may help individuals recognize one another across vast distances, an evolutionary substitute for sight in a world that doesn't see. But the light also draws attention from larger predators. Every adaptation here is a compromise. Every gift comes with a cost. It's not just the fish that look otherworldly. The invertebrates here are even stranger. The giant amphipods, deep-sea crustaceans that resemble enlarged versions of the shrimp you might know from the surface, crawl slowly across the sediment, their transparent shells flexing with each movement. They feed on whatever they find: decaying organic matter, smaller amphipods, the occasional drifting jellyfish. Their legs are long and delicate, but their claws are powerful. When they feed, they fold inward like machinery built for a single function. They don't waste motion. In the deep, efficiency is beauty. And then there are the siphonophores. They can stretch for more than 100 feet. Their bodies compose not of one animal, but of thousands of specialised units, each genetically identical, yet performing a different role. Some handle movement, some feeding, some reproduction, and others light. Together they form a single organism that behaves like a collective intelligence. When a siphonophore hunts, the entire colony moves as one, extending luminous tendrils into the water, each equipped with stinging cells. Anything that brushes against them is paralysed instantly. The prey doesn't even realise it's been caught. The siphonophore doesn't move quickly, it doesn't have to. The ocean delivers its meals eventually. There's a stillness to these creatures that feels deliberate, almost meditative. They don't chase, they don't flee. They exist in a constant balance between presence and absence. The boundaries between body and water seem to dissolve. Many are nearly invisible, their transparency so perfect that even their internal organs are hard to see. The deep doesn't reward visibility, it rewards disappearance. To survive here is to be part of the dark, not separate from it. Some of the strangest designs come from creatures that live around hydrothermal vents, places where the seafloor cracks open and releases superheated water filled with minerals. Here, life feeds not on sunlight, but on chemistry. Tube worms grow in towering clusters, their long white bodies topped with bright red plumes that wave through the heated water. Inside them live symbiotic bacteria that convert hydrogen sulfide into energy, feeding both themselves and their hosts. The worms have no mouths, no digestive systems. They are vessels for another life entirely. The partnership is so complete that neither species could survive without the other. In the glow of the vents, surrounded by clouds of sulfur and steam, the tube worms look almost holy, their forms motionless in the black current. Crabs and shrimp crawl nearby, their shells tinted ghostly white. Some are completely blind, their eyes degenerated into pale spots. Instead of sight, they sense temperature gradients, chemical traces, and vibrations in the vent water. They move with purpose, following invisible trails of heat that lead them to food. Their bodies have grown heat-resistant proteins to endure temperatures that would boil most life. When seen under these submersibles' lights, they appear calm, unhurried, as if they've always known that the world has many ways to stay alive. And then, among the vent fields, there are creatures even stranger. Snail species whose shells are made not of calcium but of iron. The scaly-foot gastropod, discovered only recently, builds armour from iron sulfide minerals absorbed from the vent fluid. It's the only known animal on Earth that incorporates metal into its skeleton. It lives among boiling currents and freezing darkness, its heart beating slowly, its shell glinting faintly when light touches it. It's an image of resilience so pure it feels mythic. Life literally made of the planet's bones. As you drift above this landscape, you start to understand that the deep isn't just another environment. It's a different logic of existence. The creatures here aren't adaptations of familiar forms. They're entirely new blueprints. Their bodies are stories of compromise between pressure, darkness, and scarcity. Their designs show that survival can take any shape if time is allowed to sculpt freely. Even the smallest beings carry this truth. Tiny copepods and plankton drift past, glowing faintly. They are almost featureless, yet each one contains the same systems of survival as the largest fish: light for communication, sensitivity to pressure, the ability to endure. They are the foundation of the abyssal web, the reason the giants exist. Every luminous whale fall, every eel, every drifting siphonophore depends on their slow rain. The ocean never stops recycling itself, and every body is both a participant and a product. What makes these forms so haunting isn't their alien appearance, it's their completeness. They're perfectly themselves, the end result of evolution pushed beyond familiarity. They make you realize how narrow the human sense of normality really is. Up there, life competes for space and light. Down here, it competes for quiet and stillness. Every curve and hollow, every filament and glow, every transparent sheet of flesh serves a purpose. Nothing here is wasted, not even strangeness. If you turn off your lights, the shapes vanish instantly, leaving only the memory of motion. For a few seconds, it's hard to tell if they were ever there at all. The water feels empty, but you know it isn't. You've learned by now that invisibility is the deep's most common disguise. Somewhere in the black, creatures continue to drift, to breathe, to feed, their bodies so perfectly matched to this world that they no longer seem like exceptions. They are the rule. And as the current carries you farther down, you feel the water grow colder again, the pressure even heavier, the darkness thicker. The light of the vents fades behind you until it's just a ghostly shimmer lost in the distance. Ahead, only darkness. But even here, life persists. It's quieter now, slower, more deliberate. And yet something new begins to take shape in the dark ahead. A different kind of order, one that makes the strange designs of these creatures seem almost comforting by comparison. Because the deeper you go, the more the ocean reveals its uncanny logic. The shapes that first seemed alien now start to form patterns. The stillness begins to feel like intention. The silence feels designed. What lies ahead isn't just adaptation, it's architecture. A deeper kind of symmetry begins to emerge, one that doesn't follow beauty as we understand it, but something colder, sharper, more precise. It's the deep's own aesthetic, built from fear and perfection at once. It's the architecture of fear itself, waiting in the next layer of darkness. The light from the vents is long gone now. The last hint of warmth has faded, and the water around you has turned into something ancient and absolute. You're deeper than almost anything alive has ever needed to go. The silence has weight again, pressing into the suit, into your thoughts, until even memory begins to sound muffled. It's here, in this still and endless black, that the ocean begins to show you something different from biology. The creatures that drift past no longer look like accidents of survival. They look like design, shapes arranged with eerie precision. as if the deep itself is sculpting life into symbols of what we instinctively fear. There's an order to it, but it's not human order. It's the architecture of fear. At these depths, beauty and terror are the same thing. The forms you see aren't frightening because they threaten you. They're frightening because they make sense in ways you can't quite name. Sharp angles where softness should be. Stillness that feels aware. Faces that seem to hover just on the edge of recognition before fading back into abstraction. You begin to realize that the ocean doesn't make monsters. It makes efficiency. The fear you feel is only the mind's protest against logic taken too far. A shape moves ahead, slow, deliberate, barely visible except for the way it blocks the faint scatter of particles in the water. When it turns, the light catches its eyes, enormous and glassy, set deep into a head that seems almost sculpted from shadow. The fang-toothed fish, one of the deepest living predators known. Its body is small, barely larger than your hand, but its teeth are grotesquely long, too large to fit inside its mouth. They fold into pockets in its skull when it closes its jaw. When you first see it, your instincts flare, a flash of revulsion, the instant recognition of something designed to bite. But then, as you watch, the logic of it settles in. The oversized teeth aren't decoration, they're insurance. When food is this rare, no creature can risk losing a meal to chance. The fangtooth's entire body is a commitment to certainty. What frightens you is its perfection, not its malice. Another figure glides into view. It's a ghost shark, pale grey with smooth skin that reflects no light. Its eyes are bright, unblinking, seeming to glow from within. Its movements are silent, controlled, precise. Around its head, strange wing-like fins undulate slowly, steering it through the water. There's nothing aggressive in its motion. It's too efficient for waste, too calm for drama. And yet, as it passes, the stillness it leaves behind feels heavier, like space itself has closed around you. The fear doesn't come from what it might do. It comes from how completely it belongs here, how little it needs to change to survive forever. The creatures of the abyss are symmetrical in a way that feels deliberate. Their jaws align too perfectly. Their fins trace identical arcs on both sides. Even the placement of their lights follows invisible geometry, repeating along their bodies like measured pattern. The result is uncanny, not broken, not chaotic, but too balanced. Humans are wired to find comfort in near symmetry, in faces and bodies that feel familiar but imperfect. Perfect symmetry, on the other hand, feels unnatural, lifeless. It signals something artificial, something indifferent. That's what these creatures embody, forms so optimized that they've crossed into the realm of the uncanny. A deep-sea jellyfish passes near your light. Its body is nearly spherical, its edges glowing in slow, rhythmic pulses. Each contraction pushes it forward exactly the same distance as the one before. Its movements are hypnotic, mechanical. You watch it drift closer and realize it has no central brain, no sense of you, no thought beyond propulsion. Yet its precision feels conscious. The geometry of it unnerves you, the way its rhythm doesn't falter. It moves like time itself, repeating endlessly, flawless and detached. The fear that rises isn't about danger, it's about recognition. You're seeing a kind of order your mind understands but doesn't want to acknowledge. The perfection of purpose. Every creature here exists without waste. No colours, no noise, no flourish. Their bodies are stripped to function, and in that reduction something beautiful turns cold. Even the bioluminescent glows that once looked playful now seem clinical, like signals on a control panel. A viperfish passes by, its light organs pulsing in short bursts along its flank. The sequence repeats, exact and unwavering, like a machine running a program written before thought. Its long teeth glint once, then vanish as it turns away. The movement is clean, mathematical. If you could translate it into language, it would say, only enough. You start to notice how many of these creatures never stop moving. Their motions are so slow you barely perceive them, but they never truly rest. Down here, stillness means sinking. Their lives depend on subtle motion, pulses of fins, flexes of muscle, almost imperceptible gestures that maintain their balance in a fluid denser than air ever could be. Each motion has a cost, each moment a calculation. To move without thought becomes the only way to live. It's a choreography of survival, stripped of intention. That absence of hesitation is what makes it unsettling. The landscape itself feels alive now. The seafloor stretches below, vast and plain, marked by faint ripples of sediment shaped by currents that have been flowing for centuries. In the glow of your instruments, the ground looks too smooth, too even, as if something has drawn it flat with purpose. Small shapes move across it, crustaceans, worms, isopods, but their paths never cross. Each creature seems confined to an invisible route, as though following a map you can't see. The order of it all begins to press on you. There's no randomness, no drift, no chaos. The deep silence is not emptiness, it's control. Somewhere in that stillness your light catches a flash of movement. A jellyfish the size of a human head hovers motionless for a moment, then folds in on itself, its bell pulsing inward before opening again in slow rhythm. Inside it, organs twist and shimmer, perfectly symmetrical. It's mesmerizing, but there's something else about it too. A kind of menace that doesn't come from aggression, but from its absolute calm. It doesn't need to flee or fight. It has existed this way for millions of years. That knowledge lingers in its shape, in the way it seems entirely unbothered by your presence. The ocean sphere doesn't roar, it hums, it radiates through order. Every edge and angle, every light and silence, every tooth and lens seems arranged with patient intention. The longer you watch, the more you feel it. Not as a threat, but as a realization. The deep doesn't need to chase or kill to command fear. It only needs to exist. What unsettles you isn't the creatures themselves. It's the awareness that they don't feel fear at all. They don't know the concept. They simply are. And to be in their presence, to float in a world so perfectly balanced between motion and stillness, is to sense what it feels like to be unnecessary. There are moments when a soft glow in the distance catches your attention, and for a second, your brain insists it's artificial. A light from another submersible, perhaps, or a reflection of your instruments. But then it moves, slow and organic, drifting closer until it resolves into the shape of a siphonophore colony. Its chain-like body undulates in the current, and the lights along its length flash in precise rhythm, one after another, like circuitry. It looks constructed. It feels intentional. The sequence repeats again and again, looping seamlessly. You realize with a quiet shiver that it isn't signaling to anything. It's simply doing what it always does, following a program written in its DNA long before memory existed. That's the pattern of the abyss, the reason its creatures look so alien. Each one is a perfected machine for its environment. Evolution here hasn't produced chaos. It has produced inevitability. Every edge, every angle, every glow has been smoothed into function. The fear you feel isn't primitive panic. It's the recognition of inevitability itself. The awareness that this world doesn't require your understanding, your emotion, or your presence. The ocean's perfection doesn't need witnesses. The deep sea environment magnifies this unease through scale. Everything here moves slowly enough that your perception of time begins to distort. Minutes stretch into hours. Hours feel like moments. Creatures hover motionless, yet you know they're alive. The current barely shifts, yet entire ecosystems are moving. It's an architecture not of walls and lines, but of rhythm, repetition and stillness forming structures in your mind. The ocean builds its cathedrals not from stone, but from habit. Every flicker of light, every drifting fin, every pulse of current forms the scaffolding of something vast and invisible. The deeper you go, the clearer that structure becomes. The creatures thin out again, but those that remain seem larger, older, slower. A giant amphipod moves along the seafloor, its legs glinting faintly. A ratfish glides overhead, smooth and featureless. An eel twists like a ribbon of muscle, disappearing into sediment. Each shape fits perfectly into the pattern, as if the deep has arranged its inhabitants with careful precision. You realize now that what feels like fear is actually understanding. The understanding that everything here operates on principles too exact to be accidental. Even the light behaves like architecture. Every glow, every flicker defines space in the darkness, like pillars holding up invisible rooms. You begin to see these glows as structure, frames, corridors, slow-moving hallways of light that seem to pulse with the rhythm of unseen walls. The abyss has built itself into geometry, not for us, but because geometry is what endurance looks like under pressure. Fear comes not from monsters, but from perfection that doesn't need approval, and still you drift deeper, following the pull of gravity and curiosity alike. The creatures around you become fewer but more deliberate. The water feels thicker, colder, more absolute. The pressure now could crush steel, but the life here doesn't resist. It exists within it as naturally as you exist in air. The perfection of their forms feels less alien now, more inevitable. Even fear begins to soften, replaced by something quieter, a kind of awe for the symmetry that life finds even in darkness. It becomes clear that what you've been calling fear all along isn't emotion, it's recognition. The shapes, the patterns, the stillness, they all echo something within you, something evolutionary and ancient. The human brain reads efficiency as threat because inefficiency is how we survive. We rely on randomness, on adaptation through error. Down here, error doesn't exist. The deep has edited it out. That's what gives it its stillness. That's what gives it its power. As you continue drifting through the black, you start to see faint outlines of ridges below, the ocean floor spreading into mountains and valleys so vast they defy measurement. These are the oldest parts of the earth, landscapes shaped not by wind or water, but by the slow movement of the planet's crust. The creatures that live here are relics too, survivors from ages when the continents were young. Their forms carry history written in muscle and membrane. What you're seeing isn't just the architecture of fear, it's the architecture of time itself. And as that thought settles, a calm begins to replace the unease. You start to see the symmetry not as menace, but as memory. The memory of a world that has never needed to change because it has never needed to fail. The deep isn't a nightmare. It's a record of perfection, achieved through endless patience. Its forms frighten you, only because they remind you of what happens when nature stops experimenting and starts refining. You're nearing the oldest layers now, where life itself feels fossilized but still breathing. The creatures ahead aren't new designs, they're remnants. Survivors from epochs so far back they predate the very oceans we know. They are the ghosts of the ancient sea, the next revelation waiting beyond the edge of fear. The silence feels older now, not just heavy, but ancient, like it remembers a time before sound existed at all. You've drifted through darkness for what could be hours or centuries, and somewhere in that endless black, the present begins to loosen its hold. The deep does that. It blurs time until every moment feels like a layer of sediment settling over the next. Down here, past 6,000 meters, you've left the world of motion and entered the world of memory. Every ripple, every glimmer, every slow drift carries the weight of ages. The creatures that inhabit this part of the ocean are not new inventions. They are remnants, survivors from epochs when the world was still assembling itself. They move like the living memory of the planet, like ghosts from a sea that once covered everything. The first sign of their presence comes not from sight, but from a kind of awareness, the faint shift of water pressure, a tremor too gentle to feel but enough to notice. Then, as your light cuts through the black, a shape appears. It's pale, segmented, armoured. The creature looks prehistoric because it is. A giant amphipod hovers near the seafloor, its body plated in translucent armour, its movements deliberate, unhurried. Its design hasn't changed in millions of years. It doesn't need to. The deep hasn't changed either. The same cold, the same pressure, the same slow rain of life from above. It has been this way since before mammals existed. In this constancy, evolution found stability instead of innovation. Down here, success means not adapting but staying perfect. Nearby, a Dumbo octopus floats upward, its ear-like fins fluttering gently. Its body is soft and translucent, its face almost expressive in its simplicity. It drifts rather than swims, propelled by slow, measured pulses of its fins. Scientists have called it adorable, but watching it now, you realise that's only because of the comfort it offers the human eye. It's one of the few creatures here that feels gentle. Its lineage stretches back tens of millions of years. Its ancestors watched continents move, ice sheets rise and fall, species appear and vanish. It's a survivor of stillness, of patience refined beyond imagination. Every movement it makes carries the rhythm of something that has endured every possible version of the world. The abyss is full of such endurance. The frilled shark, another ghost from an ancient time, still prowls the depths much as it did long before the dinosaurs disappeared. Its body is long and eel-like, its mouth lined with rows of backward-facing teeth. Its movements are slow, almost ritualistic, as though it remembers a time when speed was unnecessary. The shark doesn't chase, it glides, opening its mouth when opportunity drifts close. It hunts by scent and vibration, guided by senses older than light. It's a reminder that the deep sea is not a refuge for the new but a museum of the eternal. Further along the seafloor, something even older glimmers in the faint beam. A nautilus shell, coiled and perfect, its shape unchanged since before the first forests rose on land. The nautilus propels itself by jets of water, an ancient design that still works flawlessly. Its shell is divided into chambers filled with gas, allowing it to control buoyancy with mathematical precision. There's beauty in its simplicity, but also melancholy. The nautilus carries a design from a world that no longer exists, a time when the oceans were warmer, shallower and alive with creatures that now survive only as fossils. It doesn't belong to our era, yet here it remains, its spiral still gliding through the dark like a clock that refuses to stop. You begin to notice that every form here, every slow drift, every faint shimmer, carries echoes of something older. The deep doesn't erase its history, it keeps it intact, layer by layer. Even the sediment beneath you is made of memory. Each grain is the crushed remnant of something that lived and died and fell from above. The ocean floor is an archive of extinction, an unending record of life becoming something else. There are places where the sediment is so thick that the earlier shells are still buried there, perfectly preserved, untouched by air for hundreds of millions of years. The sea forgets nothing. A shadow moves just beyond your light, large but indistinct. When it passes through the beam, it reveals a shape you can barely process. A living fossil, a coelacanth, its lobed fins moving like slow wings. It was once thought extinct, known only from stone impressions in ancient rock, until one was found alive in the 20th century. It's a creature that survived by hiding in plain sight, by existing in a place humans rarely touch. Its blue-grey scales shimmer faintly, metallic and ancient, reflecting a light it shouldn't know exists. It looks unbothered by the intrusion. Its species predates trees, outlived meteor impacts, and swam through oceans that no longer exist. It's not rare because it's fragile, it's rare because it's complete. The deep preserves things like this because it doesn't change. On land, time destroys, weather erases, erosion, decay, and growth blur the past into the present. But here, pressure and cold preserve. The abyss is timeless, not because nothing happens, but because everything happens too slowly to matter. A carcass might remain intact for decades, gradually sinking into sediment that will hold its outline forever. Even light decays here with reluctance, fading not suddenly but gradually, as if reluctant to vanish. In some regions, entire communities of ancient lineages coexist, a living mosaic of evolutionary persistence. There are crinoids, sea lilies, that anchor themselves to rocks, extending feathered arms to catch falling debris. They look delicate, but they are among the oldest forms of life still in existence, unchanged since the Paleozoic. Their fossilized ancestors can be found in limestone all over the world, silent reminders that what you see here has been repeating itself for 500 million years. Every slow wave of their tendrils is a gesture copied from eternity. And then there are the glass sponges, structures so fragile they seem impossible. Their bodies are made of silica, the same material as glass, woven into intricate lattices that could pass for art. Some of them, like the Venus flower basket, form perfect cylindrical shapes that trap tiny pairs of shrimp inside. Once trapped, the shrimp grow together, living out their lives within the sponge's transparent cage, feeding on what drifts by. The sponge in turn uses their waste for nutrients. It's a strange kind of symbiosis, both beautiful and somber, a cycle of confinement and reliance that's been repeating for millions of years. The glass sponge itself can live for centuries, untouched by decay, its structure growing slowly and symmetrically in the cold. What's striking about this place is how little it cares about time. The creatures here don't evolve toward complexity, they evolve toward endurance. Complexity demands energy, and energy is scarce. Simplicity lasts. That's why the deep looks the way it does. Ancient, repetitive, ghost-like. It's not frozen in time. It has simply reached equilibrium. The forms that work stay. The ones that don't vanish quietly into the sediment, joining the archive below. Every so often the seafloor shifts beneath you. A distant tremor from tectonic movement. A ripple from the planet itself. It's a reminder that even the oldest parts of the ocean are alive with change, though on scales we can barely comprehend. The creatures here have felt those tremors for eons, adapting to them not by fleeing but by folding the motion into their existence. The ghostly sea cucumber, for example, sways with the current when it passes, its body bending with the force instead of resisting it. That's what survival looks like when time moves this slowly. You don't fight. You bend. Some of the most haunting remnants aren't visible at all. They drift unseen in the water, the DNA of species long gone, fragments of cellular memory that float for years before breaking apart. Scientists call it environmental DNA, or eDNA, but in a way it's the ocean's whisper, the molecular echo of everything that's ever lived here. The water itself carries memory. Every sample taken from these depths contains traces of things that no longer exist, genetic shadows moving through eternity. The deep doesn't just hold fossils, it holds ghosts made of code. As you continue to drift, you begin to sense that this isn't just a graveyard of old species. It's something larger, a living museum where the past and present coexist without conflict. Each creature here has outlived entire worlds. Their calm isn't ignorance, it's wisdom carved by time. They know, in their slow and silent way, that change always comes, and that survival is simply the art of waiting for it. The ocean's oldest residents don't chase the future, they let the future come to them. The deeper you move, the rarer the life becomes, but each encounter feels heavier, more significant. These are the last witnesses of a time when the world was new, when the chemistry of life was still being written, and that chemistry has never stopped shaping them. The same elements that built the first cells still pulse through their bodies. The same reactions still fire in their tissues. What began as simple molecules in the primordial sea continues here, unchanged. You realize that this is what the deep truly represents. Not death, not desolation, but memory that refuses to fade. The creatures that drift through this blackness aren't ghosts because they're gone. They're ghosts because they've outlived everything else. They carry the planet's story in their flesh, its patience in their blood, its silence in their bones. They're reminders that time doesn't erase, it accumulates. As you float farther along, your instruments begin to pick up faint heat signatures ahead. A new kind of life waits there, one that doesn't rely on the rain of death from above or the calm of endurance. It feeds on the Earth itself, drawing energy from the minerals and gases that leak through cracks in the crust. The ocean floor is about to change again. The ghosts of the ancient sea fade behind you as the first faint shimmer of heat glows in the distance. A reminder that even in the deepest dark, the Earth still burns. The water begins to warm again, not enough for comfort, just enough to break the illusion of stillness. The temperature here should be near freezing, but it isn't. Something beneath the seafloor is breathing, slowly, heavily, exhaling clouds of minerals and heat. You drift toward it, and the water changes texture, becoming hazy with fine particles that catch your light like dust in a forgotten room. The darkness here doesn't fade, it glows faintly, a deep metallic shimmer that doesn't come from life above but from the Earth itself. This is the deep secret chemistry, the place where the planet's heart seeps directly into the ocean, where rock and water meet and agree, somehow, to create life. Hydrothermal vents rise from the seafloor like pillars of black smoke. They aren't smoke at all, but mineral-rich fluid boiling up through cracks in the Earth's crust. The pressure keeps it from turning to steam, so it erupts instead as liquid heat. Superheated water laced with iron, sulfur, methane and hydrogen. Around these vents, life gathers in impossible abundance. The contrast is startling. Just a few meters away, the seafloor is barren, but here it overflows with motion. Crabs, shrimp, worms, snails, eels. They crowd the vents like pilgrims around a fire. The water around them can reach 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, and yet they thrive, unburned, unbothered. The deep has rewritten the definition of survival again. At first glance, the vents seem hostile, jetting columns of black fluid, their bases crusted with metal deposits, their heat radiating into the cold abyss. But this is one of the only places on Earth where sunlight means nothing. Life here doesn't feed on the energy of the sky. It feeds on the energy of stone. Inside the vent fluids, bacteria perform a process called chemosynthesis, using hydrogen sulfide instead of sunlight to create organic molecules. It's the same principle as photosynthesis, but inverted. Life built from the absence of light rather than its presence. These microbes are the architects of this world, invisible and tireless, turning poison into nourishment. Every larger creature here depends on them. The worms, the clams, the shrimp, all carry these bacteria within their tissues, symbiotic factories that build food from mineral and gas. The giant tube worms are the most striking. Their long white bodies rise in dense clusters around the vents, each capped with a red plume. The plumes aren't decorative, they're gills, filled with hemoglobin that binds both oxygen and sulfide, feeding their internal bacteria. The worms themselves have no mouths, no digestive tracts, no eyes. They are vessels, hollow frameworks sustained entirely by chemistry. Inside them, the bacteria live protected and stable, and in return, they feed their hosts. It's a perfect exchange, a partnership older than ecosystems. Watching them, you realize how unnecessary individuality is to the deep. Life here isn't a contest of organisms, it's a network of shared reactions, each depending on the next. Around them, White crabs move in slow, deliberate swarms. Their shells are covered in fine hairs that trap bacteria, forming dense mats they can harvest and eat. Their claws are small but quick, adapted to scraping and sifting through the vent sediment. They move constantly, always near the warmth, always where the chemistry is richest. Farther from the vent, their numbers thin until the seafloor empties again. Life here lives on a knife's edge between energy and nothingness. A few meters distance is the difference between abundance and silence. The water around the vents is heavy with scent. Metallic, sulphurous, ancient. If you could breathe it, it would taste like the beginning of the world. That's what this place is in a way. The Earth's first kitchen. Long before the surface could sustain anything, long before sunlight broke through the atmosphere, the same chemical reactions happening here may have sparked the first cells. The deep vents are not relics. Their origins still active, laboratories that never closed. The same mechanisms that feed these worms and crabs may have built the first self-replicating molecules, giving rise to every lineage that followed. To look at them is to see life's oldest blueprint still running. You notice how quiet it is, even here. The heat should roar, the gas should boil, but sound doesn't carry far at this depth. The vents pulse instead, like lungs, the fluid bursting forth in rhythmic intervals. It's not random. The planet breathes through these fissures. The minerals that pour out here eventually settle and form new crust, constantly rebuilding the seafloor. Every inch of the abyss is both ancient and new, the oldest and youngest part of Earth existing at once. The creatures that cling to it are not just surviving, they are participating in the planet's metabolism. They are part of the slow exhale that has kept the world alive for billions of years. Move closer, and you see how carefully balanced everything is. The bacteria that form the base of this ecosystem thrive only in a narrow range of temperature and chemical concentration. Too far from the vent, and the water is too cold. Too close, and it's too hot, too acidic. The line between thriving and dissolving is razor thin. Yet life has found that line and holds it with unshakable precision. Tube worms build their colonies exactly where the gradients meet. Crabs patrol the boundary, feeding on what drifts too far. Fish hover at the edge of visibility, their bodies silver and small, waiting for the currents to deliver something edible. Everything is exact, nothing is wasted. It's tempting to see this as an exception, a miracle hidden beneath the crushing dark, but it isn't. It's a pattern repeating across the globe. Similar vents exist in every ocean basin, each one supporting its own variations on the same theme. In some, the vents spew not black fluid but white, rich in calcium and silica instead of iron. The creatures differ slightly. Some worms are smaller, some shrimp translucent. But the logic remains identical. Chemistry turned into community. Even cold seeps, where hydrocarbons leak slowly through the mud instead of boiling water, host their own networks of bacteria and symbiosis. The planet finds life wherever energy moves, no matter what form that energy takes. The deeper you observe, the clearer it becomes that this world isn't separate from the one above. The minerals that rise from the vents eventually drift upward, feeding plankton near the surface. The waste from surface life drifts back down, feeding the bacteria again. The system loops endlessly, a conversation between heat and light, stone and air. The ocean is one continuous organism, breathing through chemistry. The deep's hidden reactions are its heartbeat. What's striking about these creatures is how calm they seem. There's no urgency in their movement, no fear in their patterns. The worms sway gently with the current, their plumes filtering the vent water in slow rhythm. Crabs crawl in steady lines, shrimp hover in flickering clouds, snails climb slowly up the mineral chimneys. Everything here moves in time with the vent's breath. You realize, watching them, that survival at this depth isn't struggle, it's synchronization. To live here is to align yourself perfectly with the environment, to let chemistry flow through you instead of fighting it. Every now and then, a vent collapses. A build-up of mineral crust cracks under the pressure, and a plume of hot water bursts forth, scattering the colony. For a moment, chaos fills the water. Worms tumbling, crabs scattering, clouds of sediment billowing into the dark. Then slowly the pattern restores itself. The bacteria settle on new surfaces. The worms anchor again. The crabs return. The balance reforms almost instantly, as though the ecosystem had memorized its own reconstruction. It isn't resilience as humans understand it, it's inevitability. The chemistry itself demands life. Further along the ridge you see a different kind of vent field. Colder, quieter, older. The structures are larger here, towering columns of white mineral that rise like spires. Scientists call them white smokers. Their plumes are rich not in sulfur, but in carbonate, and they support different microbes, ones that feed on methane instead of sulfide. These are gentler worlds, slower to change, but equally alive. The methane-consuming bacteria release a faint bioluminescence, a subtle glow that outlines the towers like lanterns in a drowned cathedral. You float through them, and it feels like drifting through architecture not built by hands, but by equations. Every shape is a record of chemistry at work, the slow sculpture of mineral and microbe repeating itself across millennia. This is the deep's language. Pressure translated into reaction, temperature into form, mineral into life. Each vent, each fissure, each bubble of gas is part of a planet-sized dialogue. It's not a dialogue we were meant to hear, but we're listening now, for the first time in history. The more we study it, the more it suggests that life is not rare or fragile. It's inevitable wherever energy moves through matter. If it can happen here, at the bottom of an ocean filled with poison and heat, it can happen anywhere. Every exoplanet we point our telescopes toward could have its own version of this story, its own vents, its own quiet symbiosis of stone and cell. As the vent fields stretch out before you, you notice that the water glows faintly, even where there are no visible organisms. That glow is chemical, the product of reactions between minerals and seawater. Even in the absence of biology, the planet produces the same kind of energy gradients that sustain it. It's as if the Earth itself is alive, or at least capable of imitation. The deep doesn't separate the living from the non-living, it merges them. Here, rock can feed, and water can breathe. The boundary between chemistry and biology dissolves. You drift back from the vent field, watching the clouds of mineral-rich water rise into the blackness, spreading slowly until they disappear. They carry with them heat, nutrients, and fragments of life that will eventually fall again, continuing the cycle. It's humbling, realizing how small the surface world is compared to this constant exchange below. The deep isn't silent or dead, it's the engine. And yet, even this world, with all its balance and abundance, is fragile. A change in temperature, a shift in current, a disturbance from the surface could undo it. The vents are temporary. When they shut down, their colonies die. The bacteria lose their energy, the worms collapse into stillness. But elsewhere, new vents open, and the process begins again. The ocean is always rewriting itself, one eruption at a time. Life never stops, it just relocates. The heat fades as you drift away. The water cools again, the glow recedes, and the silence returns. You can still see faint outlines of the vent towers behind you, their tops crumbling, their lights dimming. The current carries the remnants upward, back into the slow-moving dark. You realise that you've just seen something both primal and modern, both origin and present tense. The deep's chemistry isn't history, it's continuity. As you move into colder water again, the abundance thins. The animals grow smaller, fewer, slower. The glow of the vents becomes memory. What's left is the soft, endless motion of the abyss itself, the drifting of particles, the quiet waiting. Above you lies the surface world, fragile and noisy. Down here, the ocean keeps its oldest secret alive. It's not just chemistry anymore. It's balance made permanent, the slow breath of a planet that has never stopped creating. And somewhere above, far from this darkness, the human world sends its noise down through cables and machines, reaching farther into the deep each year. The lights of exploration fall like brief stars into a universe that has existed perfectly without them. Soon, those lights will touch this chemistry, disturb it, document it, and move on. But for now, the vents still breathe, the worms still sway, and the ocean still speaks the language of stone. You drift upward, leaving behind the warm glow and the trembling towers. The blackness ahead is empty again, but not the same. It feels filled with quiet consequence, as though every molecule around you remembers the reactions you've just witnessed. The deep's chemistry doesn't end at the vents. It seeps outward, into the water, into the bodies of the creatures that drift above, into the entire rhythm of the sea. As you ascend, the light from your submersible fades in and out, catching faint glimpses of movement. Fish, gelatinous drifters, transparent beings that come and go like thoughts. The ocean's chemistry is inside them too, carried upward, turned into muscle, skin, and glow. They are the bridges between the vent's heat and the world above, and eventually they will rise to meet that world, to collide with light and oxygen and change again. You're nearing the border now, the place where the abyss begins to give back to the surface. Here, the deep and the shallow meet in uneasy exchange. Some of what rises will nourish, some will vanish, some will be destroyed. This is where the ancient patience of the ocean collides with the speed of the human world, a meeting that reshapes both. What waits above isn't as forgiving. It's where the deep silence meets our noise, where discovery becomes disturbance. It's the threshold where the abyss touches us again, where the two worlds briefly overlap before retreating back into their own rhythms. The darkness begins to thin, though barely. The water is still cold enough to numb, still black enough to erase distance, but somewhere above you, light exists again. Not the sunlight that touches beaches or coral reefs, but a distant, diluted shimmer, a whisper of brightness filtering through kilometers of weight. You're leaving the ancient chemistry behind, ascending through the layers where life shifts from alien to familiar. But the journey upward is not a return, it's a collision. What waits near the surface is not peace or renewal, it's disruption, the meeting point between a world that has remained unchanged for billions of years and one that cannot stop changing itself. This is where the deep meets the surface, and where that meeting becomes both discovery and damage. The pressure eases as you rise, and with it, the forms of life begin to change again. The translucent bodies of the deep fade into more solid creatures. Muscles replace gelatin, bones return, colour appears. Lanternfish drift in loose schools, their sides flickering with bioluminescent stripes that once served as camouflage from predators below. They are travellers between worlds, spending their days in darkness and their nights rising toward the light to feed. Each one carries the deep inside it, its eyes still adapted for faint glows, its organs tuned to pressure and quiet. They are the messengers of the abyss, carrying nutrients upward and signals downward, stitching the layers together through movement. It's in their company that you first notice something unnatural, a shape too straight, a shimmer too angular. At first it looks like rock, then like glass, then like both. As you get closer, you see that it's debris, a sheet of plastic half buried in the water drifting downward with the slow grace of a jellyfish. It catches the faint light and bends it, glowing softly like something alive. A lanternfish swims close, investigates, and veers away. To it, the material is meaningless, a new pattern in a world already filled with strange shapes. But to you, it's a signal. The surface has already arrived here. The human world, loud and restless, has found its way even to this depth. As you continue upward, you begin to see more of it. Threads, fragments, dust. microscopic particles suspended in the water, invisible except under light. They outnumber the plankton in some places, forming clouds that drift with the same rhythm as life. To most creatures, they're indistinguishable from food. Shrimp eat them, fish eat the shrimp, whales eat the fish. The particles move up the chain, silent, unrecognizable, inevitable. They don't decompose, they just disperse. They don't feed life, they feed its confusion. The deep consumes them without knowing, and in that act its purity begins to change. The meeting between the deep and the surface has always been violent in small ways. Currents colliding, temperatures clashing, migrations pulsing back and forth. But this is different. This is the surface forcing itself downward, insisting on being felt. The noise, the chemicals, the warmth, all of it seeps into the layers that once resisted intrusion. Even the sound of ships travels through the water now, a constant low-frequency hum that never ends. To a whale, it's thunder without pause. To a squid, it's pressure disguised as sound. The deep, once defined by silence, now vibrates faintly with the echo of the engines. You drift higher, and the pressure lightens again. Shapes become faster, colours more vivid. Shoals of small fish flash in coordinated bursts, their movements sharp and deliberate. Predators patrol these mid-water regions. Tuna, swordfish, sharks, creatures built for motion, for speed, for the hunt. Their world is still ocean, but it's not the same ocean. It's full of cycles, seasons, migrations. Here, the deep's patience gives way to the surface's urgency. Life moves faster, dies faster, evolves faster. Everything feeds and flees at once. The quiet philosophy of the abyss doesn't belong here, and yet traces of it persist. Many of these mid-water creatures spend half their lives returning to the dark. Each night, as the surface cools, they rise to feed on plankton. Each morning they descend again to avoid the light. It's called diel vertical migration, the largest daily movement of life on Earth. Billions of animals move in unison through the water column, a tide of living shadows rising and falling. They bring nutrients from the deep to the surface and carry carbon back down again, maintaining the ocean's balance through repetition. The deep breathes through them. It's a rhythm that has persisted for millions of years, unbroken, unbothered by time, until now. Warming waters have begun to shift this balance. The upper layers of the ocean are heating faster than the depths can adjust. The boundary between warm and cold, called the thermocline, grows sharper. Some creatures can no longer cross it. Others linger too long near the surface and become prey. The great conveyor belt of migration begins to falter, and with it, the transfer of nutrients slows. The deep depends on the fall of organic matter from above, the marine snow, the drifting bodies, the slow rain of death that feeds the abyss. When the surface falters, the deep starves. It doesn't happen quickly. It happens with the same patience that defines everything here. But once it begins, it doesn't stop. You rise into waters filled with faint light now, a dim blue haze spreading in every direction. It should feel familiar, almost homelike after the darkness below, but it doesn't. The light feels too sharp, too exposed. You can see the silhouettes of larger creatures moving in the distance, sharks gliding effortlessly, rays rippling like cloth, schools of fish darting through columns of rising bubbles. Life here is abundant, but restless. The balance that once felt absolute below has become negotiation. Every creature here competes for space, for food, for warmth. The ocean that once felt infinite now feels crowded. There's a trawler above, though you can't see it yet. You know it's there from the sound, dull, rhythmic, metallic. The nets extend downward for hundreds of meters, wide as city blocks, scraping through the upper twilight zone. They catch everything. Fish, squid, jellyfish, even creatures from deeper layers that have drifted too far upward. The haul will feed markets and industries, but the loss will echo downward. Each fish caught is one fewer link in the deep's food chain, One less carrier of carbon, one less messenger between the layers. The ocean doesn't collapse at once. It empties slowly, invisibly, until the silence returns for the wrong reasons. And then there are the lights, rows of them, dropped by humans into the black, designed to lure fish upward, to make them visible to machines. They glow steadily, unnatural colours in a world built on subtlety. Where bioluminescence once whispered, these lights shout. They disrupt migrations, confuse predators, blind prey. The language of the deep, the delicate communication of glows and flickers, is drowned in artificial glare. The ocean adapts, as it always has, but every adaptation costs something. The creatures that depend on darkness retreat deeper. Those that can't, disappear. You break through another layer, and the light from above sharpens into visibility. The water brightens, filled with plankton shimmering like suspended dust. Sunlight filters down now, fragmented by waves. For the first time in what feels like eternity, you can look upward and see the surface, a silver sheet, trembling and unreachable, yet somehow fragile. You remember how far down you've been, how patient the deep is, how ancient its logic. Up here, everything feels temporary. The waves shift with wind, the temperature changes with season, the entire ecosystem moves like weather, the deep moves like time, the surface moves like thought. For a moment you hover in between, suspended in the divide. Below, the blackness still breathes. Above, light shatters across the water's skin. You can see both worlds at once, and the difference between them feels more philosophical than physical. The deep builds through silence and endurance. The surface thrives through noise and change. Both need each other. The dead feed the living feed the abyss. But the balance between them is not stable anymore. One has learned to interfere with the other, and interference always spreads downward. The nets break the water above, drawing their catch upward in slow, heavy folds. Scales scatter in the light, falling like glitter back into the water, sinking slowly toward the darkness below. It looks beautiful, even peaceful, but you know what it means. Each fragment that drifts down will feed something. Shrimp, worms, bacteria. But fewer and fewer will come. The deep has survived extinctions and ice ages, but this is different. The ocean has never had to adapt to noise, to heat, to plastic, to hunger without cause. It doesn't rage against it. It absorbs it. The way it absorbs everything. That's what makes the danger invisible. The water around you hums faintly again, the sound of propellers mixing with whale song somewhere far away. The whales' calls travel for thousands of kilometres, low and mournful, tracing routes their ancestors followed for millennia. They are among the last great carriers between surface and deep, diving to immense depths for food, then rising again to breathe. Their movements keep the ocean connected, mixing nutrients, spreading life. But even they are forced to navigate around noise now, frequencies that confuse their sense of distance, their songs echoing off walls of sound that never existed before. It's strange, this feeling of return that isn't really return. The higher you rise, the more fragile everything feels. The abundance hides tension. The colour hides exhaustion. You begin to understand why the creatures of the deep never leave it. Down there, life has learned patience. Up here, it has learned desperation. The two worlds are one ocean, but they live at different speeds. When they meet, the slow one always loses. You finally break through into the shallows, where sunlight reigns completely. The surface ripples just above, reflecting the sky in distorted fragments. You look back down, and the black beneath you feels infinite, alive, patient. It's easy to forget from the surface how vast it really is, how every breath of air, every gust of wind, every drop of rain depends on what happens in that unseen world below. The deep doesn't speak loudly, but it speaks constantly. It absorbs, transforms, releases. It has always been the planet's quiet engine, and the surface has always been its fleeting reflection. The world above will keep exploring it, keep probing with machines and cameras and nets. That's inevitable. Curiosity is what drives the surface world. But there's a difference between seeing and listening, between extraction and understanding. The deep has always taught one lesson better than any other. Survival comes from balance, not control. The creatures below know that instinctively. They live by surrender, by patience, by precision. The surface has forgotten how. You float for a moment beneath the waves, watching light shimmer across your hands. The water feels warmer, lighter, busier. Boats move above you, shadows of human purpose crisscrossing the sunlit skin of the sea. The deep lies below, unchanged but waiting. You realise that everything you've seen, from the glowing worms to the ancient ghosts to the chemistry of stone, is still there, working, breathing, enduring. The ocean doesn't end where the light begins, it only hides. And as you drift in the dim blue, caught between silence and noise, between patience and urgency, you feel the connection still holding. The deep still feeds the surface, even as the surface forgets. It will keep doing so for as long as it can. But every current, every flake of falling snow, every echo of sound reminds you that the balance isn't eternal. One day, the deep may grow quiet for reasons it never chose. You take one last look downward. The darkness doesn't feel frightening anymore. It feels like truth, steady, unjudging, permanent. The surface flickers above, restless and bright. The abyss below hums softly, endless and calm. Between them lies everything alive, and though the surface will always believe it rules the ocean, the deep knows better. It always has. You begin to rise toward the light, and with it comes the faint thought that perhaps the deep isn't something separate from you at all. Maybe it's a reflection, the part of every living thing that endures quietly beneath the noise. Maybe what we call the unknown isn't darkness, but memory. You break through the surface, gasp into the bright air, and the sound is deafening. The sea rolls beneath you, indifferent and infinite. Somewhere below, the abyss turns over slowly in its sleep, feeding, waiting, remembering. It will always be there. The ocean within us never leaves. The surface closes over you again, but not with finality, more like a breath being taken back. The light that had shimmered so sharply just moments ago fades, softening into the same familiar blue that once frightened you, but now feels like something else entirely. After seeing the deep, you can't mistake this colour for emptiness. You know what lies below it now. You've seen how much of the ocean lives unseen, how much of it endures without witness. The stillness of it follows you upward, clinging to every motion, echoing in your thoughts. You can leave the depth, but it doesn't let go. It becomes part of you. There's a quiet rhythm to the water here, not unlike breathing. The waves rise and fall with long, patient intervals. The sound of it surrounds you, a low, constant hum that reminds you of the pressure you left behind. Even near the surface, where warmth and wind dominate, you can still feel traces of the deep in every current. It moves beneath everything, the silent pulse of the planet's circulatory system. You're not separate from it. You're suspended in it, just as every living thing has been since the beginning. When you've gone far enough beneath the surface, you realise how little separates life from the elements that created it. The salts in your blood mirror those in the seawater. The calcium in your bones was once part of coral, of shells, of stone ground down over eons. The oxygen in your lungs was carried here first, built by plankton that turned sunlight into breath long before there were names for anything. You're made of the same chemistry you saw at the vents, the same elements that drift through the abyss. The ocean doesn't just surround life, it composes it. Every living being is a continuation of that reaction, a ripple of the same equation that began billions of years ago when heat met water and water met patience. People tend to think of the ocean as a place apart, a boundary, an other, something we look toward rather than from. But it's the opposite. It's the origin that still exists beneath every surface we build. Even when you stand on land, you're standing above it, not outside it. The rain that falls on your skin is the ocean rising. The clouds that move across the sky are its breath. The rivers that cut through continents are its veins returning. The body remembers this, even if the mind forgets. That's why the sound of waves soothes even those who have never seen them. Why the sight of moving water feels like recognition. Somewhere in our chemistry, the sea is still thinking. When you breathe slowly, you can almost match its rhythm. The inhale and exhale of your lungs mimic the push and pull of the tides. The pulse in your wrist matches the faint planetary heartbeat you felt in the black below. The constant exchange of heat and cold, of carbon and oxygen, of creation and decay. Every organism you met in the depths, every fish, every worm, every flicker of light was a variation on that same rhythm. Life down there isn't separate from life up here. It's simply slower, quieter, more patient. The deep isn't a different world. It's the same one, only stripped of noise. You can almost hear it when you close your eyes. Not as sound, but as continuity. The waves folding into themselves. The weight of pressure translated into calm. The same patience that holds the ocean together holds you together too. The mind that spins with thought and memory and worry comes from this same place. A fluid intelligence born in the dark, shaped by need, softened by endurance. The ocean has never rushed, and neither did evolution. It waited, adjusted, tried again. It built everything that moves and breathes now. You are, in a literal and quiet sense, one of its experiments that learn to stand up and remember. When people talk about mystery, they usually mean the unknown. But the deeper you go, the more you realize that mystery isn't about ignorance. It's about scale. The ocean doesn't hide things on purpose. It's just too vast for immediate comprehension. That's what gives it its peace. The deep doesn't demand understanding. It allows it slowly when patience is shown. The surface world has forgotten how to wait like that. Up here, everything moves too fast, burns too quickly, ends too suddenly. The deep still waits the way the planet always has. It knows that every disturbance will fade eventually, that every intrusion will dissolve, that even the loudest surface storms are only ripples at its edge. And yet, even the deep isn't untouched. You saw the fragments falling, the threads of plastic, the drifting scars of noise. The surface has learned how to reach downward. It's still learning how to listen. The difference matters. The creatures below don't resist us because they can't. They adapt as they always have, but adaptation takes time, and time is running faster up here. The balance between the quiet and the restless is fragile now. You can feel it in the water. The currents don't flow as evenly as they once did. The temperature gradients shift unpredictably. The tides change rhythm without warning. The ocean is still breathing, but the breath is uneven. And yet, despite all of that, it remains alive in a way that no other system could. Its patience isn't gone. It's just waiting for us to slow down long enough to notice. The same chemistry that fed the worms at the vents still feeds the air we breathe. The same slow circulation that carried whale song through the dark still carries warmth across continents. The ocean remembers balance even when we forget it. That memory doesn't vanish. It lingers in motion, in sound, in salt. Every wave that touches the shore is an echo of that memory trying to reach us again. If you think about the creatures of the deep now, the ones that once frightened you, the anglerfish, the gulper eel, the viper fish, you realize they were never monsters. They were reflections of necessity, shaped by the same instincts that move through you. Their hunger, their patience, their precision, all of it exists in you too, just hidden beneath layers of noise. Every cell in your body carries a trace of that first hunger, that first search for equilibrium. The ocean within isn't poetic, it's chemical. You are the deep reorganized into motion and memory. The thought that brings calm isn't that the ocean will endure, it's that it already has. It has outlived every extinction, every ice age, every heat wave, every rearrangement of the continents. It has been boiling, freezing, silent, storming, poisoned and reborn. It has existed longer than the idea of life itself. Its chemistry is the constant, and so is yours. The molecules that built the abyss now build your body, repeating the same reactions at a different temperature, at a different scale. That's what connection truly means here. Not metaphor, not sentiment, but inheritance. The surface world keeps looking outward for meaning, toward the stars, toward distant planets, toward futures imagined in light. But meaning has always been downward. The deep doesn't promise transcendence, it promises understanding through humility. Every time you return to it, even in thought, it teaches the same lesson, that stillness is not absence, that darkness is not emptiness, that silence is not the opposite of sound, but its foundation. The deep isn't trying to teach, it's just showing what works. It's the purest expression of how to last. You float still for a while, the water moving gently around you, the horizon distant and unshaped. The sky is wide, but it feels thin now compared to what's below. You can't see the abyss from here, but you know it's waiting, vast and patient, carrying on with its quiet cycles. The vents breathe, the worms feed, the snow falls, the ghosts drift, the light flares and fades, nothing down their ends. It only changes form. When you finally move towards shore, the sound of the waves grows louder, sharper, more familiar. Each crash against the rocks feels like punctuation to a story that doesn't need one. The ocean doesn't conclude, it continues. The tide pulls back and the sand glitters where the water leaves it, tiny grains of what used to be coral, shell and time. You step onto land and realize the same thing happens in you. Thoughts drift, feelings rise and fall, patterns repeat. The same ebb and flow that moves the sea moves the mind. The ocean within never dries, it just takes different shapes. As night falls, the air cools and the horizon darkens. The line between water and sky vanishes until the two seem to merge again, one vast, breathing presence stretching in every direction. You can almost see it the way the deep would see it, without beginning, without end. You close your eyes, and the quiet fills in where the noise used to be. Somewhere in that quiet you recognize it again. The pulse, the rhythm, the patience. It's not the sound of the sea outside you anymore. It's the sound of the sea inside you, still moving, still remembering, still alive.